Welcome to see you again. First, I want to apologize. I know I told everyone through 2 weeks ago I was going to be here Tuesday to help you with any VMS problems. After 50, well, I'm not going to say her age. After a long time, my wife's appendix decided it no longer wanted to reside there. So we've been dealing with that. It's been fun. But we're here now, and I've got you for the next 12, 13 hours, right?
Sure.
The vegetable course is it's an integral course. You got a course on transplanting, you got a course on soil, you got a course on composting, you got a course on a lot of stuff. This is how and when all that should happen. As I said, I'm filling in for Bill, so I didn't make the slides, but I spent all weekend reviewing them, so hopefully this goes smoothly and I'm not at a loss for words too often. This is pretty, who's germinating right now? All right, yeah.
Weeds.
Weeds, yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't try to be funny, I thought that
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, you put your seeds in, you germinate, you get that little seed up. I germinate large scales. I think I've got 1,000 plants germinating right now. Yeah. So to make sure that every one of my plugs are going, I put 2 seeds in, and then I have the heart-wrenching task of clipping one of them. That was yesterday. It was traumatic, and I'm seeing counseling for it. But I'm not going to ever tell you growing food is easy. And I grew up on the East Coast in the middle of a big pine forest, and we always had a garden. And then when I joined the Navy, I was like, I got to get away from the East Coast. I went all the way to the West Coast. And for all the faults that California has, and I've had to spend a lot of time there, if you want to grow something, you throw something on the ground and then walk away and it grows. Texas, not so much. And coming back here and trying to start the garden up again, it's been trying. So this is the first stage. Now I'll see if I can make this work the way it's supposed to. Okay, yep, so this is vegetable gardening, okay? We're gonna, the big thing, there's a couple big things you need to get out of here, but the thing you gotta keep in your mind is, and I want everyone to remember this, you have to run the race, okay? June, you should be harvesting. If you're not harvesting in June, July, and August, your plants are, so it's actually beneficial for us because we actually have 2 growing seasons. We grow, we have a spring and a fall season. So, at the end of August, we replant and then go in, and we're going to get all through that. This is me. There was a whole slide in here. I was supposed to introduce myself, but much more interesting stuff to talk about. I do have to bring up the crap test. Okay. I did a lot of mountaineering and mountain climbing and guiding, and there was a saying that if you ask 3 mountain guides a question, you're going to get 7 answers, okay? If you ask 3 gardeners a question, you're going to get 10 answers. And it's worse when you Googleize it, because then you're going to get 1.2 million answers. So what you need to think about when you're looking for information, okay? Is it credible? Is your resource credible? Is it relevant to what you're doing? Is it accurate? How old is it? I'm embarrassed to say it, but I get on Google and I look and I read the whole article and I look at the top and it was written 12 years ago. I'm like, oh, great. Okay. And then what's the purpose? And that's probably the big one, right? If you're going through and you read an article and you read an article and read an article, and at the bottom it says, oh, and by the way, buy our solution for this. Just stop, right? As soon as they're trying to sell you stuff. One of the best ways to get around this is when you do Google something, how to grow tomatoes, tamu.edu, and that will get you all the nice PDFs and the research, and at least the first few results is going to get you something reliable that you can depend on. Okay, so what we're looking at in this class, okay, we're going to adopt key practices for sustainable agriculture, describe what factors to consider when you're starting your garden, utilize season extenders and crop rotation, which is actually not super critical. You don't absolutely need them, but they help out a lot. This is designed for professionals and hobbyists. I know Bill helps a lot of market farmers out. And then we're gonna build a grow box with an integrated IPM management, mechanical management system. Have you guys had the pest and IPM class yet? Dr. Smith, you haven't? Okay. Don't worry about it. It's fun. First, some administration. You got a big old packet, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I will point when we get to something that might be in the packet, I'll bring it up. But this presentation is twofold. This is your in-person presentation, and then there's a lot of stuff in that packet, and that thumb drive. That thumb drive has got some of the best stuff ever on it. I'm going to point out one of them right now. There's a folder in there that has the AgriLife Easy Grow series in it, and it's just 1 or 2 page papers for all the different types of vegetables. So you want to grow tomatoes, and it goes through seeding, transplanting, everything all the way out to harvesting, the pests, the disease, everything on it. And there's only like 1 or 2 pages, how to plant it, and the rows and spacing, everything. You're going to see later how we plan out our garden. I print those out. When I go to grow all my vegetables, I'll print each one of those out, put them in a binder, and that's kind of what I work off of. All right. Okay, so your planting toolkit, some of the things, CDC fruit and vegetable nutrition. I don't think this made it in there this year, but Master Gardener's Handbook. And this handbook, can I borrow this for a second? In all of the AgriLife stuff, because gardening is only one. Like, I'm also in the AgriLife Master Beekeeper program and everything. This is the best one. If you go to any of the other AgriLife events, like the Beekeeper, we just did their conference, and they're trying to build this, and I like let them borrow mine. I was like, yeah, make it like this. So that is a really, really good book. Johnny Seed Catalog's in there, Farmer's Almanac software. We're going to go over that a little bit. It's really cool. This flash drives, and then the calculators. I'm going to show you how to use the calculators, and you're going to love it because I'm going to spend like an hour telling you how to do all this manual stuff, and then I'm going to pull the calculator up and say, yeah, just put the date in here. And Master Handbook. Okay, you guys can go through the handbook. Clyde's. Okay, the Clyde slide. I don't know. So this is pretty neat. Pretty much what you do, you take this red line, and on the top there's the dates, and one side's for spring and one side's for fall, and you put it on the week that is your last frost date. So for us, it's for this year, for us, it's March 4th. Okay, so you're going to put this red line on the March, and then it tells you, when you can start first planting, when you can start harvesting, expected harvest dates and stuff like that. It's pretty good information. If you pull it all the way, this is kind of the information of what's germination rates, spacing, what's the grow time and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there. I keep one of these in my truck because people ask me questions. Oh, when I got to put my tomatoes in? Oh yeah, they need to be in March 27th, I think, and so that's why you gotta learn to use the little tools to make yourself look good. Johnny Selected Seed Catalog. We'll go into seeds, but it's a good resource. And one other thing about Johnny's is they're in Texas, so all their seeds are used to growing in Texas. So they do a little bit, I found they do a little bit better. I'm going to show you my logbook. I keep track of where I get all my seeds, and they tend to do a little bit better just because they're used to us, right?
How did you know the last frost date was 4 March? You just made that up.
No, it is 4 March. You can look it up online at the. I've got like 12 slides on it. Yeah, we'll figure that out. But yeah, it's online. So this, the Almanac, this is a paid thing. I did the free subscription, and I found out about it after I did all my planning, and I wish I found out about before, but you pretty much, so this is my garden. I'm sorry I don't have this, but you can, in the program, you can make all your beds into the right size, okay? And then, say for my corn bed, right? I click the corn icon and I drag it across my corn bed, and it tells me how many rows I can do, how many plants in each row, so how many overall plants. Yeah, I think it's not $40. It actually went down. I think it's like $37 a year, which is right. It's probably the only thing in the U.S. that went down this year or last year. But it really does that, and you can also set up email reminders and calendar reminders, so you get a little email, hey, start germinating your tomatoes, hey, it's time to transplant your cauliflower and stuff like that. So it's a really good tool. There's a farmer's, if you Google Farmer's Almanac Garden Planner, it'll come up. Okay, now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. And I know in VMS I said this whole entire course is like drinking from a fire hose, right? Well, I've got a fire hose in each hand and holding two under my arms, okay? So we're gonna go through a lot. There's 147 slides that I edited down from 270 slides. But the whole thing is, the whole PowerPoint presentation is on your thumb drive, and it's built. Yeah, it's built as more of a reference tool than a presentation. So I'm going to apologize. It's a little bit of an eye chart, and some of the printing's small and it's got a lot of words on it. But I'm going to make sure you guys got the top points on all of them. So garden growing styles. We're going to start out medium. Okay, 3 basic things. There's soil, containers, and water. Okay, soil based. That's your regular in-ground garden, right? Get a patch of earth, cultivate it, make it look good. You're also going to notice that framed raised beds are in there. They're not, I'm sure there's a size where the people that go from, oh, this isn't a container, this is soil. Raised beds are considered a soil-bound one because generally they don't have a bottom. Terrace beds, lasagna-style beds. Hugelkultur, anyone ever heard of hugelkultur? I had to look that one up. Yeah, I don't do it. It's a wacky German, you start your beds and you put logs down, and then you put smaller sticks down and put other stuff down, and then it apparently works really well. The second one, pots, vertical towers, shelf gardening, your window boxes, your stuff. Shoots and microgreens. You ever see the baker's trays where they pull those trays? You do microgreens like that. And then a salad table. This is really cool. I might do this. You just make yourself a table, put dirt on it, and then you have all your salads, and you put it like somewhere ornamental so it looks nice, but then you just go out, okay, I want some arugula, I want this, I want this. That was pretty cool. Grow medium. For hydroponics and aquaponics, know nothing about them, but you get a whole class on them. I am not allowed to do that because my wife says I'm not allowed to do that because apparently it needs a lot of equipment, and I'm a bit of a tool fool. So, yeah, okay. How much soil are you going to need? If you're growing in the ground, your soil, you already have it. But you will need to think about amendments, right? You want to put like an inch or so of compost on there and then work it in. You want 2 inches of mulch. This is just a volume problem, right? Length times height, length times width times height. So if you have a 3 by 6 foot garden bed, that's 1 foot tall, 18 cubic feet of soil. Now, you can use the dirt out of your yard if you have, sorry, you use the soil out of your yard. It's all dirt to me, I'm sorry. I played in the dirt when I was a kid. I moved dirt when I got my first job. So it's, so 18 cubic feet, that's what you're gonna need. Now, if you wanna put 2 inches of compost on there, you're gonna need 3 cubic feet of compost, 15 cubic feet of soil, and that does your bed. I'm gonna give you a pro tip. Well, no, I'm gonna wait on this. Here's the thing, the bags you get at the box stores and the nurseries, they're about 2 cubic feet, and they could be up, depending on what type you get. I mean, if you get the Fox Farm stuff, you're looking at $35, $40 a bag. They're 2 cubic feet. You need 18, so you need 9 of them. Okay, higher level math, 9 times 40 is what, $360 to fill your 3x6 bed? It can get expensive. Go to the bulk places, they measure everything in cubic yards. So if you go to New Earth, you're like, I need 18 cubic feet of soil, they're gonna be like, well, how many yards is that? And they don't even measure, like the buckets that they have in their front end loaders are 1 yard and their trucks are 12 yard. And that's how they measure their loads. Okay, if you get it in the back of your pickup truck, okay, 1 bucket, 2 bucket, 3 bucket, 3 yards. It's a lot cheaper. When you buy in bulk, it's a lot cheaper. I got 25 yards and I think I paid $50 a yard, which is maybe a third of what you're gonna get from bagging it. The other thing is to take your soil and make it yourself. Take some dirt, take some sand, and buy the components individually. I find that if you buy the components individually, it gets a lot cheaper.
But then you have to have some place to mix it and stuff.
Yeah. There's pros and cons. Wheelbarrow, yeah.
Mix it in the bed.
Yeah, you can do that. My wife's ornamental flower beds are all clay, so throw down a layer of sand, tiller it. Throw down a layer of compost, tiller it. We might be able to grow something in it this year, you know. You gotta find the resources before you start, okay? So as you're doing your planning process, know where you're gonna get your soil, know where you're gonna get your amendments, because you gotta amend the soil. Even if you buy the soil from, I get it from New Earth, but there's other places. What's that, Site One? You're gonna have to put amendments in it. So you need to get all that kind of stuff lined up. You don't wanna, I'm in a predicament right now. I've got all these plants germinated and I need about 8 more beds. And my soil pile, I just realized it's not gonna fill 8 more beds. So now I gotta go get soil. So you wanna be ahead of the game on that. You know, am I gonna go to Maldonado's or this or New Earth or Site One or wherever, get it all lined up. Because then you can also price it out, right? My wife requires me to have 3 bids. Requires, yes, I must have 3 bids before. She's the financial side of the house, and I am a kept man, and I am very happy. Grow medium for containers. If you're going to do the pots and stuff, one of the big things is you can't just put your soil in the pot that you're going to grow in. You can grow stuff in it, it's too heavy, right? And it won't drain well, it'll crust, or you'll get some of the stuff, and it's kind of hard to get into a pot with a cultivator and break it up and fork it up and everything. So you're going to need some kind of potting soil, and then whether you get the stuff from the big box shop or from a bulk place, you know, watch the drain. You might have to put perlite or vermiculite in it. You might have to put some sand in it, you know. And then how are you going to feed these things? Because containers need to be watered more frequently and be fed more frequently because it's a confined space and they dry out faster. You know, seaweed and fish fertilizer. Water, Dr. Smith can talk about that. Second thing, okay, now, and these are all, this part of it's just things that we're thinking about and asking questions. We're gonna go over how to do all these. So now you gotta think about your compost, right? Compost actually in the box stores is pretty cheap. There's a Texas-made brand in there. I think it's like $3 a bag. But are you gonna do your own compost bin? If you have a decent sized garden, you will get enough green matter at the end of the year to do a compost bin. And it doesn't have to be a big enterprise. It can just be a, about this big, 3 or 4 feet around, galvanized steel or plastic with holes in it. So you're gonna get a composting lecture if you haven't already. Anaerobic. Bokashi or buried compost, or you're going to do combined lasagna beds or keyhole. Lasagna beds is where you kind of layer it. You put some dirt down and like cardboard and like compost and then other stuff, and then you get this like layered version, and then it eventually all disintegrates and comes together. Keyhole garden, everyone seen a keyhole garden? Yeah, it's pretty, all your plants are around here, and then you just dump stuff in the center. So like you just have like your compost bin in the center, and then it kind of composts and degrades and then feeds the stuff around side. I look at them as they're decorative kind of. People make them out of cinder blocks and bricks and they look really nice. Okay, have you decided which watering style you're gonna do? Okay. The first one up there is rainfall. You're not gonna do rainfall. Okay, I'm telling you right now, that's not your choice, okay? I should just line that one out. Hand watering, overhead sprinklers, hugelkultur. Bill was a big, he didn't grow them, but he liked the hugelkultur concept. The concept with hugelkultur is you have all that wood in there and it soaks up a lot of water. Wood holds a lot of water, and then as it degrades, it waters down a lot. Anyone know Olas? Heard of Olas? Yeah, so it's like containers. You get a water permeable container, maybe like a clay pot that's not glazed, that water will seep, and you bury that, and then you just keep filling that container and the water leaches out. Earth boxes, self-watering tower, built up sub-irrigation beds, drip and solar and hydroponics. Okay, all of these are good. The biggest thing is you have to watch out overhead sprinklers because you're not watering the plant, you're watering the soil, okay? And sometimes, especially for us when our humidity starts kicking up, if you actually water the plant and you don't have a good wind flow, you're gonna start getting mold problems and fungus problems. The decision you make for which watering you're gonna use depends on what you wanna grow. And because you gotta know what kind of plants need what kind of water, because it's all different. Water-loving plants, celery, cucumbers, lettuce, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, pretty much everything I grow needs tons of water. Celery, cucumbers, onions. Drought tolerant, and when it says drought tolerant, that is not Arizona scrub desert drought tolerant. Beans, tomatoes, squash, and melons. Tomatoes, in my opinion, need a lot of water. Melons, I mean, a melon is just like a rind with a bunch of water in it. So you gotta, one, know what you grow, and then base that off of that. Because I'm gonna tell you, I finally got water out to my garden. My wife and I used to fill up 5-gallon buckets in the back of the buggy and drive it out, 4 or 5 trips a day and water the plants. And I finally got water ran out to the garden. It's the most beautiful thing. I hand water, so I could just sit there and hand water all day long. It's great. You also need to be able to determine the signs of water stress. Too much water, your leaves start to yellow, okay? Too little water, your leaves start to yellow. Damping off, fungal, this one, they kind of, it's not a full wilt, but it's a little bit of wilt. Fungal waterborne diseases, this is why I say if you use overhead water, you gotta watch that. and mushrooms. If you have mushrooms growing in your garden beds, you've probably got enough water. You might haul. You also, all the things that harm your plants also need water. So all your insects might kick in. You're going to get powdery mildew, wilting. We'll go into transpiration because that's an issue that happens. Okay, watering system, half ounce, raised beds. One of the best things for raised beds is drip irrigation. You could also use soaker hoses. Sub-irrigated beds, that's when you run like a soaker hose pipe under the dirt. And again, the OLAS on containers, drips and misters, sub-irrigation. You can do that too if you have pretty decent sized containers. Wicking systems, that's kind of like the OLAS. You have a material in there and you water the bottom and it pulls the water up. I do that if you guys germinate and you have your germination in a tray. I don't water every individual plant. I lift the plugs up and dump a whole bunch of water in the tray. That's kind of a wicking system. And then hydroponic pump systems. Did it switch? Nope. Okay. How much water do you need? It depends. It depends on the temperature, it depends on the ground soil, it depends on the wind, it depends on the type of plant, it depends on the type of soil, it depends on the type of water you have, it depends on the weather. Exactly. Rule of thumb, in general, 1 inch of water a week. That'll get you to about mid-May, and then you're probably going to have to put more in. So how do you figure that out? Right? Now's the pro tip. Okay. When you're we have a section in here on planning, but when you're planning out your garden beds, make sure, well, as best you can, try and make the surface area of all your beds the same. Right? I have 48 by 48 inch beds. And then I have some 10 foot by 120 inch beds. Then I have my corn bed, which is 100 inches by 120. And then my herbs are in these like little round, 2 foot diameter
Lake tubs.
tubs. Yeah, there's corrugated metal, Amazon. Here's the thing. Square footage of this, 16. Square footage of this, 16. Square footage of this is 80, which is 16 times 5. Square footage of this, which is like 3.14, which you divide by 16 is 20%, so this is 1/5. You want to keep, if you at all possible, keep the surface area the same, or a very easy multiple of. So my 1 inch of water here is 10 gallons, 10 gallons, 50 gallons. 10 divided by 5 is 2 gallons. I don't have to think about it. When we get into the fertilizer, this is also 5 ounces, 5 ounces, 25 ounces, 1 ounce. So it keeps all the math I'm going to show you on how to do it super simple, okay? Like this math problem, okay? 2.5 feet wide, 40 feet long, that's 100 square feet of surface area in your box, grow room you can use, okay? 100 square feet times 1/12, because you need an inch, inch is a 1/12 of a foot, gives you 1 1/3 cubic feet of water. 7.5 gallons in every cubic feet of water, therefore 8 1/3 cubic feet of water, 62.5 gallons for every 100 square feet to get the one inch. All right. Like I said, I kind of went over my garden. It's the same. I don't do 100 square feet at a time, but I have 100 square feet at least. It's kind of the same thing, but that's why I say keep your, you can have all different kinds of shapes and everything like that, but try and make it so that they are either equal or a multiple of, and You never ever have to do this. You have to do this once, and you never have to do it again. I know my hose, for the 16s, I know I stand there with my hose for about 3 or 4 minutes because I got the nozzle on there, and 3 or 4 minutes is a song on the phone. Okay, I'm good. All right, so now gardening's fun, and it's not this math problem, which I'm probably the only one in the room that thinks that's fun, but
When do you water?
we'll get to that.
And do you water all at once?
We'll get to that. Like I said, these next couple slides, okay, so now you got your watering, now you have to deal with fertility in your soil. And this is, let me get rid of that. This is starting out, okay? 3 basic methods. I'm gonna go at the bottom first because this is kind of like a one-time thing, right? Especially if you're in a new development build, you're on construction grade soil. So you're gonna have to maybe put some biochar in there, maybe put something in there once in the lifetime of your garden. All right, the other 2 methods for your fertility is at a minimum once a season. So right before you go to grow, you amend your soil. And the idea is to make sure that your soil has everything it needs in it to get that plant through its life cycle to fruit, cradle to grave. The second and more advanced one is a regimen, right? I fertilize once a week on Sundays. And that way, I don't have to I amend my soil ahead of time, but I don't have to really put as much thought into, am I putting enough fertilizer and nutrients in my soil at the February to make sure my tomato plants are gonna bloom correctly in May? This is more of what everyone's used to. You just go out and fertilize a little bit. And trust me, we are going to geek out in fertilizer today, like no one's business. So basically, same thing for container gardens. Make sure you have everything in there that you need to get your plants through its life cycle, or you can do continuous feed. And like I said, there's a lot of words on the slides, and they're all in there. And then more advanced is when you actually start seeing fruiting, or for like tomatoes, when the tomato flowers, I start seeing tomato flowers, I might up some of the components of my fertilizer to make sure that in that section of the life cycle of the plant, it gets the stuff that it needs. Like potatoes, once you cover them up a couple times, you want to make sure that you're getting a lot of carbohydrates down into the ground so that you get nice big potatoes. You can do some tricks to figure that out. Okay, so now we're actually going to talk about plants and vegetables. You need to think about fertility schedules that go along with your garden style. Are you doing hot weather plants? Are you doing cold weather crops? Hot weather, sorry, wrong slide. These are cover crops. In order to keep your fertility, it's recommended to do cover crops. I don't do cover crops yet. I'm going to get to it at one point, but I'm got a lot going on. The idea with cover crops is all these crops actually feed back into the soil. Okay, so if you harvest in November for your fall crop, I mean, it's going to sit in November, December, January, February, probably part of March, and the weather's going to beat it up. All your nutrients are going to get sapped down out of your bed and gardens. So if you put cover crops on it, like a lot of the legumes and stuff, they actually fix nitrogen into your soil, and add peas, beans, will actually put nitrogen in the soil. So it kind of helps keep your soil fertile in non-use times.
And also, the cover crops, they help act like a living mulch.
Yes.
There's something cooking all those little microbes and
Yep, they keep your microbes down, they keep your weeds down.
It encourages all those pigs to come eat. Dig in your
Yeah. The thing with cover crops Whether you choose, like if you do winter peas or winter rye or buckwheat or whatever, you can't let the cover crop seed or go to seed. So you got to, one of the things I haven't done cover crops with yet, because I'm like, oh, there's another thing I need to mow. You need to keep it cut down, because if you let it go to seed, all those seeds are going to get dropped in your garden bed, and now you're going to be fighting winter rye for however many seeds got dropped in. But the bigger market farmers, like my son lives over back behind the boot barn, right? And there's a cornfield there, and he grows his corn in the spring and then puts alfalfa in there, because alfalfa is one of those cover crops that keeps the beds good, gives them a little more nutrient. Some of the bigger market farmers live by cover crops. Okay, equipment. See, I get, yeah. You don't need a lot of equipment to start a garden at all. Gardening tools, you had the tools in safety class. So I'm just going to go over some of the main things that make your life easier. Number one is shovels. Yeah. So here's a basic spade, and you only need one. Okay, like I said, I hide these when they show up. You only need one, okay, a good one. I will say on the tools, stainless steel if you can, because it will last long. Like I'm hoping my grandkids are going to use these if I can convince them that this is something they want to do. And then the other thing for your tools, like have your garden tools. Like these only get used in the garden. I don't shovel gravel with this. I have a Home Depot shovel that I shovel gravel with. I have a Home Depot rake that I do hard manual labor with. These I kind of like baby, and I rub them down with a diaper every day. But a good shovel, turnover, plant, that's essential. You need a good fork, and you actually need a turning fork. So this is a turning fork. This is not. This is a hay fork or a compost fork or something like that. You can tell the turning fork, the tines are way more robust. If you tried to turn soil with this, it's going to look like a helicopter in about two tries. But a good turning fork is good. Rake. Like I said, reason stainless steel, because it doesn't rust. You buy the shovels and they have that nice powder coating on them, and this powder coated, it's not going to rust. And you dig a hole, and all that powder coating comes off, and a week later you have a rusty shovel.
Where do you get those?
I get these. Am I allowed to say where I get these?
What's that company?
They're Schneebauer. Yeah, we're not supposed to. Okay, I don't care.
We can look at it and see.
Is there everybody's going to shop where they want to shop?
Yeah, so there's a little mom and pop store in Kyle. I don't even think they have a brick and mortar. I think it's just online. It's called the Garden Tool Company, and Ann there gets me everything that I want. She's got a good inventory online, but like she didn't have a couple of these things, and she'll go out of her way to get it if you want it. And they have hand tools, garden tools. I got my axe there. They got some really good Swedish axes. Cultivators. This is obviously more aggressive than this one. I'm going to put these up there, and then I'm going to knock them down, and they're all going to fall.
You counted how many of those you brought in, so that way.
Yeah. A good hoe. I don't like the traditional when you break up your bed. I really don't break up my bed with this. I use this to make my furrows. As you're planting, it's good. I usually try and use the cultivators to break up my bed, because I don't want to break my bed up a lot. because you're gonna mess with all the organism stuff. And then these, there's several different methods. I got the heart for my wife because weeders. And so it doesn't look like much, but you pretty much just run like this, and this little blade goes about ½ inch underneath the soil and cuts all the weeds at their roots so they won't grow back. And then like weeding my bed, I just, yeah. And
You don't have a lot of rocks, do you?
I have 1 inch of topsoil, and the rest of it is rock, and all my gardens are in beds. Yeah, yeah.
So that just goes on the surface, 'cause my neighbor's got one of those you chunk in the ground,
Yeah, this.
Amazon, and you pull it up.
Yeah, no, that for your for doing it, because it's got the little point I can do around my plants, and it only goes a little deep, and I can do around my plants and get into crevices and corners without going deep enough to hit my plant roots. And I could do, one of the reasons I do get these is because you can notice how long this handle is. And it's not like this.
Put special handles on it for you.
Yeah, so that's pretty much, and then, just some hand tools.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, the really important hand tools that you're going to want is a good trowel, a good hand, really a good trowel for your transplants, and a good hand cultivator, so you can, especially with containers, you can break up the containers. And that's really, so if you have these two, you have a shovel, a fork, a rake, a cultivator, and then maybe a weeder or anything. You don't need more than that. And I didn't say that, and I'll never ever say that I said that. You don't really need much more than that.
You're actually growing a garden to sell
He
stuff,
said it.
Nope.
right? It's for just you and your
I have about 40 beds. Last spring, I made about 600 pounds of produce. This spring I'm shooting for 1,500 because I don't know. But my son lives over in Seguin, his family, and my daughter lives up closer to Austin and her family. So, and actually, this goes into why are you guys gardening? Like I'm gardening because I want to feed all 3 of those families all year long with stuff that I know that they're eating is good. You got to kind of figure out what your reason is, and then the rest I'll donate.
Do you can and preserve?
Absolutely. Yep.
You have a lot of beds, and you have drips on your beds?
No.
I'll have one. Yeah, I have 2 beds, they're all 4 foot. And I'm running drip.
Yep.
And I'm running drip off of my irrigation side of my water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where my water's coming from too. Yep.
There's a faucet on my house, but pressure difference. And is there any amount of square footage you need to put that water on, where you should be watering more because you're not getting the pressure and the flow?
No, we'll get into, like I said, these are just kind of like the introductory slides, which hopefully I'm going to get through in the next 5 minutes. Yeah, there's a whole section on watering and how deep and when and why and everything. You had the garden safety, 26,000 people treated for gardening accidents. Most of those are not cutting your foot off with a chainsaw. It's people lifting and hurting their back and knees and stuff. Be careful. We went through the tools that are essential, which tools are, okay. And we put this in, when you're ready, invest in a set of good tools and then mark them and then don't let anyone touch them, okay? Hide them, yeah, like my garage and my mechanic toolbox, there's the Bjorn toolbox, and then there's the everyone else can use toolbox. So yeah, so keep them yourself, keep them good, and then every season you want to clean them, sharpen them, and then put them away. The bigger stuff, if you're going to do the bigger stuff, walk behind tillers. They're good. Some cutters, and I don't know how big you're going to get, but I mean you can get into plows and tillers and seeders and all the tractor. That's a little out of scope for us, but walk behind tillers can be useful, especially if you're doing it in the ground. You don't have a lot of rocks. So at my house, we have pretty big flower beds out front, and it's clay. I mean, you could pull dirt out of there and fire pots with it. It's bad. I had to break down, I got a little tiller, and I've been tillering stuff in and at least getting like the first 18 inches of that. But a good tiller, and you can rent them. I've got a lot of construction projects going, do I want a tiller? Okay, as soon as I get these beds done, I'm not going to need a tiller anymore. So yeah, there's small rental shops or the big box shops you can rent stuff from. Look into renting. Okay, do we want to take a break or do we want to keep going? Because this next section's involved and it's like, okay. Okay, let's take
I was okay until you went.
yeah. Let's come back at 10 o'clock. Will that work?
Where's your home?
New Braunfels. Yeah, I live. We got everybody? Good, ready to go? Ready to go. All right. So, vegetable gardening in the Lone Star State. You ready? Like I said, I was stationed out in California. That is fire and forget. You drop a seed on the ground, it's going to grow. Here, not so much. What we're going to be going through here is the environment that you have chosen to grow your vegetables in. Whether that was chosen for you at birth or through migration, or however. You were here, and this is what we deal with. Whether you're new to the region, new to gardening, or whatever, we have trials and tribulations that a lot of people don't have, but then we also have we don't have ones that other people have. We're not trying to grow in Minnesota, okay? We have a fairly long growing season. I think it's like 267 days when you do everything. So, but what we do have extreme temperature, extreme air and soil temperatures, sunlight quantity and quality we're not too bad with. Weed pressure, everyone's pretty much got that. Pests and rodents, we have our own, and they're Texas pests, and everything's bigger, right? Yep, insects, diseases, we have our own diseases. Water constraints, soil compaction. Like I said, I am clay all day, every day, twice on Sunday, and you used to be able to walk on my wife's flower beds, and it was like walking on concrete. And plus the guy who owned the house before me put like weed paper down that almost looked like roofing tar paper. It was so thick, and I pulled that up and it looked like a patio. Many ways to overcome these. The biggest way to really be successful in gardening is don't think about being a gardener, all right? You are a custodian of your soil, okay? And that's gonna come up a lot, and I'm gonna say it a lot because it's kind of important. All right, let's go through the cycle, what we're doing. Month-wise, what are we doing right now? We're all germinating, right? We'll start back probably end of November. We clean up all the old crops. That's where you can throw them in a compost bin. I'm bad at compost. I'm gonna get better. I just cattle wire circle and then everything just throws in there and it'll eventually be compost. You wanna add some compost to your garden at the end of the season just to decrease the amount of leaching of all the nutrients that you're gonna do. this time of year, actually starting in January for some plants, onions I think we're supposed to start germinating like January 5th or 6th. That's if you're doing it from seed. If I tried to do it from seed this year, I will be going and getting sets here in a week. Now we're planting seeds and we're getting our transplants ready, and then we're going to harden them off, and then we're going to plant them. And then once you plant, first things should be going into the ground around March 4th. Now you have to maintain them. That's the gardening part. Then you harvest, wash, prepare, eat, can, compost your leftover scraps, wash, rinse, repeat. And that sounds simple, right? Yeah. Okay, vegetable selection. This is very important. I got another class coming up. It's going to be more on how much or what. This is the what. What do you want to grow? Okay, grow what you like. It sounds obvious, but like, I'm growing kohlrabi. I don't know if I like kohlrabi. I'm pretty sure my wife's not going to like kohlrabi. But okay, whatever. I'm going to try it. Is it good?
It's a good substitute for potatoes.
See, that's what I was saying. Yeah. See, I mean, 6'4", 250 pounds. I like everything. Yeah, kohlrabi. I'm going to try that. Turnips. I know I like turnips. But here's an example, eggplant. I'm the only one in my 3 families that like eggplant. In my 30 years of marriage, I've made 1 eggplant dish. So if I'm making 1 eggplant dish every 30 years, I don't grow eggplants. Just keep that in mind, what you want. We're also, a little preview when you get into the production planning, how to turn your recipes into what you need to grow in your garden is one of the things. So keep that in mind too. Like, we're big salsa eaters. That'll help out. Think about what you like to eat. Also think about what's difficult, or in this case, expensive in the grocery store. You're gonna see my little book here in a little bit. I think last year I saved $1,500 in groceries once I, took out how much it cost me to do all the gardening stuff, and then how much tomatoes and cucumbers and squash and zucchini were per pound. Saving money is very doable. That's how I grew up. I didn't walk into a grocery store until I was in high school. The last part of this is you need to get varieties that do well in Texas, okay? And this is where I steer you away from the big box stores. A lot of them are grown in Texas, but a good example is fruits. Okay, fruits they have a cold day requirement, right? And you can go into a big box store and you can get a peach tree, but if you look at the tag on that peach tree, it says it needs 800, it needs so many days, so many days of cold. Well, we don't get that many days of cold, so that peach tree is never it'll grow, it'll look beautiful and green and everything. You're not gonna get a single peach unless you get the 100 or so days of cold. So you got to keep that in mind too. And this is really easy for ornamentals because you can do the superstars, you can do the natives and stuff like that. For vegetables, it takes a little bit more research. Like I said, the Johnny seeds, the seeds that we get from them are actually developed here, so they're a little bit more restrictive. All the nurseries around here, Fanix and Maldonados and everything, they have the plants that do well, the tomato varieties that will do well here and the cucumber varieties that will do well here. Average day of last frost. Here we go. Okay, this is all based on hardiness zones. Hardiness zones are developed by the department, I don't know if the Department of Agriculture does it, one of the services do it.
That's what it says. USDA?
There we go. See, I knew at one point I read that slide, so it's in there. Total 13 zones. If you remember in Dr. Kelly's class, we've just been moved. We used to be in 8B, and now due to our average weather conditions, we're now in 9A, which generally means hotter summer, more mild winter. And you can see the 9, our average, we can get to 20, which is going to be happening this week. Yeah.
Ain't it?
So you just remember, as you're looking at your seed packets and your plants and everything, you got to at least make sure that it'll say what hardiness zones it'll grow in. 9A's got to be in there. You're going to have a hard time. And I'm going to give you a rose story here, probably at the end of this, that'll elucidate that a little bit. On average, 9 February 28th to November 25th, December 13th. So your first, the 2 big dates here is your last average frost date, and then at the end of the year, your first average frost date. That's a little, and the way the days move in the year and the way seasons change and everything, it's not the same every year. This year it's March 4th, November 28th, my birthday. So I'll remember it this year. You need to plant inside because a lot of the plants aren't frost resistant, especially a lot of the Texas plants aren't frost resistant. What is a freeze? Okay, 3 different types. We have a light freeze, 29 to 30 degrees. I think about 2 days ago, it got down to about 30 at my house. Really didn't have to do anything. It was all right. A moderate freeze, 25 to 28, and then a severe freeze, lower than 24. So 3 weeks ago, when it was dropping into the 20s for about 5 days, that's a severe freeze. My lantana finally died out, right? You got to keep this in mind. And you keep this in mind because this determines what kind of protection you got to use. Because there are some things that'll be good for a light freeze, some things for a moderate freeze, and for a severe freeze. For instance, my frost cloth is moderate freeze, so it'll protect me to about 24 degrees. And if it gets lower than 24 degrees, I pray.
I go with natural selection.
Yeah, right? There's a lot of data charts in here, a lot of pretty slides. I'll let you look at them. This is just kind of annual weather averages near San Antonio. And you can see our lows don't look all that bad, right? Yeah, okay. Well, this is average. This is taken over a year period or a 10-year period or whatever. So those weeks in the 20s or ice apocalypse doesn't really move this needle at all. More charts. Okay, timing your harvest. Anyone know what the Persephone period is? Okay, we look for the Persephone period. The Persephone period is the time frame where daylight is above 10 hours. Okay, plants usually need about 10 hours. If you're going to look on some things, like seed packs will say, oh, you at least have, and there's a couple slides in here, you need at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight for a plant that wants to be in direct sunlight. That is like bare minimum, right? Bare minimum. 10 hours is kind of magic number, and that's what defines the Persephone period. Outside of this, your plants are going to start to want to hibernate. This is one of maybe 3 or 4 reasons they're going to hibernate. And they don't hibernate like trees hibernate. They just stop growing, and they'll wait for it to get warmer. Like, I germinate in my garage, and I was doing great, everything. We got that week where it was 20. My garage usually stays pretty warm, but a week of 20-degree outside, my garage temperature was about 50, and I really didn't get any growth that week.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, 10 hours of sun.
Yes.
Texas sun or
Yes.
sun?
Texas sun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Persephone is the time when it's not 10 hours, right? In between? Or is it
Yeah. You stay out of.
time you don't want to start planting?
Yeah. Average sunlight hour in Texas. You can see we're actually not bad. December, we still have 10, 15. So, I mean, technically you would say we might not have a Persephone period, but I mean, try and grow something outdoor in January. I mean, besides the cold, that's the reason we have grow lights, and all the market farmers and farm-to-table guys out here germinate on their grow lights is because it's not so much that this is 10 hours, it's just transplants need, this 10 hours is a good average for a developed plant. Transplants need about, I don't know, 12 to 16 hours. So if you're trying to transplant here in February and you're getting 11 hours of light, it's not really what the young baby plant wants.
Unless you go to Alaska, where it's 23 hours a day.
Yeah, and then you run into the problem, you don't give them darkness and they can't, yeah. I mean, it's a tangled web we weave. So we got to look at the December, dark month. We were looking at January, February, and this gives us a sweet spot for planting. You know, February, this is just light though. There's still temperatures, okay? So anytime after February, we're pretty good light-wise for planting. How does this work out? Here's our transplant sweet plot, or sweet spot. So we figure this out for tomatoes, peppers, zucchini. You know, you can, according to light, transplant them in February. There's enough light outside where they will grow as long as you have full transplants, about 6 to 8 inches. Okay. Same with the fall. We usually harvest fall gardens probably middle November or whatever, because if you get into December, some things are going to grow. Kale grows through the year. Flowering fruits aren't going to grow very well or they're going to stop fruiting or stop growing just because of light restrictions. Okay, need to get above like 10 hours and average frost dates. These are broken down for warm season and cold season, but it's the same for warm season plants. You need to get them in, and then outside of the Persephone periods. And here we go. So kale, you see like the kales and chards and mustards, they're actually, if you can use some season extenders, some frost cloth, or whatever, you could grow kale here all year long. There's enough light, even in the Persephone periods, there's enough light to grow kale, but the other ones, peas, beans, pole beans, where you want to put them in your grow schedule, okay, there's a lot of variables, light, this is how we want to do it. Transplant sweet spot, and this builds up and this builds up, and I said this is going to be a little, and then I'm going to show you the spreadsheet that does it for you. Day length, climate conditions, more climate conditions, doesn't really change. Except Bill liked data. Bill was a data guy, right? This goes into succession planning. Right, because I just put everything in the ground at once, and then what I don't eat, I can. The other way to do it is stagger it. Light comes into a real, really comes into play with this, because if I start germinating tomatoes, the beginning of February in my garden, I'm going to germinate them, and then I'm going to wait 2 weeks, I'm going to germinate another one. And I'm going to wait 2 weeks, I'm going to germinate another one. And I'm going to wait 2 weeks, I'm going to germinate another one. But at some point, in order to beat and run the race and beat this time, I might need to put tomatoes out in February. I don't want to do that. It's cold, the light. So succession planning is a little harder here, because we have a very long grow period, but it's broken into 2 points. I'm going to show you the spreadsheet that does that for you too. Yeah.
With that, what about a greenhouse? And you're working
greenhouses, yeah, we're going to go through season extenders. Actually, I moved them. I put them right after here because they made more sense here. Number of ways to protect against frost. Okay, cover your plants, right? 3 weeks ago, it was 80 degrees. No, 3 weeks ago, it was like 20-some degrees, and then 2 weeks ago, it was 80 degrees, and then last week was kind of mild. All my tulips popped. And tomorrow, it's going to be 20, so I'm out with jars, I got jars all over the place, and I got to lift the jars. It's like, yeah, jars and stuff. I've got frost cloth coming, because my old frost cloth it just kind of fell apart. But yeah, you got to cover your plants somehow, some way. And here's the misconception. If you see someone, they might have a citrus tree or whatever, and they go to cover their plant and they wrap it, the top, useless. You have to, when you cover your plants, you have to go all the way down to the ground, because the thing that's actually keeping that plant warm is the dirt, soil, is the soil. And so if you were to cover your lemon tree, drape it all the way down to the ground, and then that soil makes a little biodome or terrarium kind of thing. So if you see people doing it, your neighbors doing that, hey, you need to do it like this. A lot of things we could use, woven fabrics, greenhouse plastic. One of the big things is, and this sounds counterintuitive, if we know if tomorrow's going to be cold, as soon as I leave here, I'm watering everything outside. Okay? You say, well, water freezes. Yes, water freezes, but water has a huge capacity to hold heat. Okay? So it will freeze, but a lot longer, but it'll hold the heat a lot longer, and it'll keep the ground warmer. So you always want to water. If you know a freeze is coming and it's out, it's some weird outlier that, we've had nice warm days, give a good watering to all your plants. Ma'am?
Does that include like raised things and pots?
Everything.
Everything?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have water, because that water, like I should have done it yesterday. I might text my wife on the break. Yeah.
So basically, you're a procrastinating gardener.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah, the water will keep it, and the water's going to soak up all the heat and stuff. And then if you cover it, it works a lot better. Hardiness zones. Yep, this is just going over our change. We were 2012, we were 8B, we're now 9A. Northern Bexar County guys? Was it Northern Bexar County? Bear, sorry. I know that. You're still 8B because the line like cuts your county right in half. Okay, air soil temperature. I really don't care what the air temperature is. I really care what the soil temperature is. The air temperature, when it's fleeting, it changes everything. I can protect against the air temperature, right? I can put frost cloth down. I can have a greenhouse. I can have row covers. I can have any kind of stuff. I really can't. And I'm a mechanical engineer, have not figured out how to do anything with soil temperature outside of maybe like running hot water lines in my soil, and I'll get divorce papers if I try to do that. Average soil temperatures, you see this is from like a January to February, so the cold time, you see we get dips. Soil temperature usually lag air temperature. Air temperature go down cold, go down cold, go down cold, go down cold, and then soil temperature. So there is a lag period. You're going to be able to, if like next week we're going to have like 3 or 4 days, I don't expect a low air temperature. I don't expect to see very much drop in the soil temperature. It usually takes a few days. The first couple inches might get cold, but down below it'll take a couple days for the cold air to actually affect the soil, because you got to think there's other things that are actually keeping the soil warm, geothermals and stuff. Bam.
Is it warm at the slope?
Sorry?
Does the soil temperature warm up as slowly as it drops?
No, it'll actually come back faster if it's a warm day, because like I said, there are other things that keep the soil warm. Like we're on a big ball that's got a molten center, so all the geothermals coming up, underground water will actually help. Underground water is pretty cold. I have a well. It comes up, but it's still 50 degrees, and that's kind of the number you want. And in Bill fashion, here's another cool looking chart. Yeah, you can see 21, that was ice apocalypse, right? Yeah. About here, if you think 50 degrees is a growing temperature, quite honestly, our average soil usually is above 50 degrees. Like if you talk to, or you read a gardening book that's not focused on Texas are like, oh, as soon as the soil's workable, you can plant your vegetables. And I was like, what do they mean? I'm like, oh, because it's frozen, right? We don't have that problem. The other side of this is July and August, the soil's 80, 85 degrees if you don't do anything with it, and that's a little too hot for plants. Yeah, it's probably a lot too. I mean, even if you germinate, you know, I germinate between 75 and 80, and then as soon as they sprout, that comes off the heat. So that's why air temperature, yeah, it's hot and it's super sunny, but it's actually the fact that your soil temperature's breaking that 80 line, actually breaking the 75 line, is why July and August are kind of hard to grow in. Air soil temperature, plant experience temperatures, and air temperatures. In cold air, so if the temperature is 30 degrees for any long period of time, you're gonna get about 40 degrees, about 6 inches down, okay? So I don't know how long next week is. I think it's just a couple days, right? 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days, through Saturday. Next week, this week actually. Yeah. So maybe at Saturday, that outside soil temperature, 4 days, it's probably starting around 50, 55, 4 days. It probably not going to be down to 40, but it's not going to be what it is right now. And then protection, that's my jars on my tulips, right? All right, I can't really do anything about the soil temperature per se, but even if I put that jar on the tulip, that little bit of soil will kind of stay a little warmer. And then you could do that in scale, and you can cover entire rows of vegetables and stuff, and that's what we're going to get in here. In the heat, we have the opposite problem. All right, when it's 100 degrees out, our soil temperature is 85. All right, I don't know about you guys. I don't garden in August. Not so much as the plants don't like it, I don't like it. You know, I do my inside projects. Yeah, if your soil temperature's creeping up 80 degrees, 85, 90 degrees, there's not really anything you can do to fix that. So collect what you can in June. Now, like when June comes, I don't rip everything out of the ground. Okay, I'll see if it'll make it, you know, keep watering, keep going, see if it makes it, but I'm not expecting to get 40 pounds of tomatoes on an August tomato plant. I might get 5 if it survives. Protection from the heat, really the only thing you could do is shade cloth. 50% shade cloth is probably a good deal. The problem with shade cloth is it's got to go on and off, on and off, on and off, because if you leave the shade cloth on 50%, now, yeah, your plants aren't getting hot, but they're also only getting half the light. So, I mean, shade cloth, I'll put mine on around 10 o'clock and take them off around 4. That's all you can do. I thought about putting ice in one of my beds once, see what that did, but it didn't. I mean, yeah, I was like, well, I'm watering and then cooling. It only cooled down to like the first inch. It wasn't worth it. Air soil temperatures. So again, we're starting to see, here's all the air soil temperatures. And as I was going through these slides, I'm like, these are all in here because you're going to start see these growing things develop. Okay, we had the light one, now we're doing the soil temperature, and we get to the end, you're going to actually see the growing period. So not doing anything here. Germination or transplanting, most in March. I think there are some things that will wait till April. Watermelons, I think, wait until April. In April, you should be growing. May, June, July, maintenancing. And everything should hit maturity before July or very close to. Okay, well, we can do shade cloth for cooling. Row covers, this is the stuff I actually got, Agribon 19 or similar. It's a cloth, lets 70% of the light through. But it'll protect down to, I think, 24 degrees. That's pretty good. Plastic film, I haven't gotten in. That seems like a lot of work. But it will, it'll work.
It's not too bad.
I say it's a lot of work, but I'm thinking about the 7 or 8 shade covers I have to sew this weekend, so I don't think it's going to be that much. Okay, so you got all the light data. You got all those charts memorized. We're going to test you on that, right? You got all the soil data. Okay, so how do you turn that into when in the world can I grow in Texas? Best thing, start with the last frost date, okay, March 4th. You need to subtract however many days it takes to germinate your seedling, some 7 days, 21 days, however that is. Subtract however many days it needs to get that seedling to a transplantable plant. That's generally 6 to 8 weeks. Some things are less. I forget which they said it was. Squash and cucumbers is less. It's like 3 to 4 weeks. Watermelons are 3 to 4 weeks less. Add all those numbers together, and then subtract that from March 4th. That is the date you should set your seeds, okay? If we're gonna do that, we're not gonna do that math problem. You also have to add off your 5 days of hardening, okay? We're planning March 4th, the end of February. I'm gonna start dragging all these plants out into the driveway for several hours every day, and then let them harden off, and then eventually I'll sit them out where they wanna go for a couple days, let them harden off, and then I can plant them. Okay, everybody, you can do that math problem? Subtraction, right? It's not that difficult, okay. This is what it looks like. Here's your germination period. Here's this, see, this frost date was March 13th. So your hardening off period, time for your seedlings to turn to germination, your germination period. So what is that? Cauliflower, you should have been germinating that, the week of 16 January. And that's how you work. Now you have to work that for every vegetable that you want to plant. But you don't. It's all right. Fall planting time formula is a little different. There's a little more to it. You go to the estimated average first frost date. You still have to have all the germination, transplant growing, hardening off. That's if you do it. A lot of fall plants you can direct sow, okay? So you got to keep that in mind too. And even spring plants you're going to direct sow. Corn's direct sow, turnips are direct sow, peas are direct sow. The thing you have to add when you do your subtraction is the maturity time. So if we're going to do transplants, you need germination date, you need the transplant growing time, your harden off time, and then you need to add to that the time it takes for that plant to go from transplant to maturity, which could be 50 days, 60 days, 120 days, whatever, and then you work that back. That's what this looks like. Here's November 22nd, weeks of maturity for Brussels sprouts, and then they direct seeded this, so they seed it here, they grow the seedling, oh no, they seed it here, grow the seedling. It looks like they probably transplant it here, and then, harvesting kind of the end of November. A lot of that stuff. This is where fall gardens will not produce as much as spring gardens. They just won't. Number one, you're putting the plant in the ground at the end of August, right? Okay, soil temperatures are still high, sun temperatures are still high, you need protection. You're not gonna get, and there are some things that you just aren't going to be able to grow. There's some things that are going to love it. Sweet potatoes, put sweet potatoes all the way back in May. They will grow all the way through, harvest them in November. That's one of the things I grew last year. It was my first first crop of sweet potatoes. They're crazy. They go everywhere. I'm gonna do them vertical this year because I had no more paths. It was just sweet potato vine everywhere. But you see how that progression works. You have to look at your plant. How long is that plant going to go for the fall? And then you need to be harvesting this plant by that first frost date. With exceptions, like I said, kale there are some things that can grow all year long. There's some things that actually need cold, like garlic needs to be several cold days to get bulb. If you plant garlic and it doesn't have cold days, you just get the shoot. For it to actually bulb out, it needs cold days. So like I planted my garlic in November. It'll sprout a little bit and cut back, but now it's going to start bulbing up, hopefully. Season extenders. Okay, we're going to bring a lot of pictures in here. So this is a good section. A lot of row covers. This right here, if you're interested in it, it's kind of complex. It's a Mittleider in-garden greenhouse. I just started looking into it and seeing if I wanted to do it. It's actually pretty neat. But season extenders, increased harvest, extended growing period. All right, the spreadsheet I'm going to show you includes season extenders on it. So it actually gives you 2 weeks on either side more growing time. If you do it correctly, you can grow year-round. I haven't built my greenhouse yet. You're going to have a whole class on greenhouses. Once I get that up, I'll probably be able to do the January, February stuff, but you got to get power out there because even though you have a greenhouse, it still needs light, it still needs heat for the most part. And then you got to worry about the dark days. Okay, so why bother? We need to protect warm season crops against frost, especially when we get them first in the ground, especially if we're succession planting. Succession means we're leaving, yeah, that's, succession planting, like you need to get those plants in probably before the first frost date, so you need to extend that season. You can do that with protection. Want to keep pests out? We're going to see in the grow box that where's my time? We're going to see in the grow box that we build how to integrate a mechanical pest management system. Reduce transplant shock when you put it in, if you can keep it warm, a little nicer, a little snug, right? And you're hardening them off, but it'll help your transplants. Okay, cold frames and hotbeds. Anyone have these? Cold frames or hotbed? I was thinking.
I use cold frames.
Do you? Yeah, I'm thinking about building some of these. They're just pretty much like little bed-sized greenhouses. They have glass cover. You can also use that to extend your period. So you could start your hardening off in there, and it'll also give you a little added time.
It also really protects with the hard winds.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, that takes time and a little bit of dollars to make a good cold frame. But what you can see, and maybe you've seen them on Google too, you can go to, let's say, a Walmart or any place like that and buy the big, clear plastic tubs.
Yep.
And set them out in your yard and put your flats of tomatoes or peppers inside that. They will reap the benefits of the sun, but they're protected really from the strong winds that we may have on a daily basis.
Yep. Which is a good, here's the thing you want to point out, and I'm not you're going to see in this slide, start small, all right? I'm not the guy to tell you that, all right? I'm hypocritical for telling you that, but, and then you make it as big as you want. I try and use, you're going to see part of the wood boxes I've cut from other wood that I had. This is as big or as small as you want it. Hotbeds, like I said, basically it's a little shelter. It's a little more than row covers. It's fixed. It takes some investment to put them in there. Apparently they work really well. When I get my greenhouse up, I'm going to probably put a row of them on the outside. Clutches, here's my tulip jars, right? Any clear thing will work, okay? I had to run inside and grab a whole bunch of 1-quart mason jar, wide mouth mason jars, and I'm sticking them up. You can obviously buy clutches, you can make them. One of the, I was show on TV, they just made a little frame and they put some plastic over it. The thing with clutches is it's got to be at least, doesn't need to be transparent, it needs to be, what's the other one? Translucent. Okay, so some light needs to get through, because that's kind of how it works. The light goes through, then the radiative energy from that light warms soil, warms plant, keeps everything warm. Greenhouses we're going to go through all this extends the growing period. The thing when you start using these, not so much the cloths, but if you're using, plastic clutches, grow boxes, greenhouse and stuff, it will change your watering requirements, okay? It may mean you don't have to water a lot, because if you're getting condensation effect and then raindrop, like I germinate with tops on it, so I moisten the seeds, but I don't have to water. If I have the top on it, I don't really have to water them. They stay like a terrarium moist. It could be the other, though, and you could actually, so it takes a little more attention to detail with your watering, and how does it reduce your watering or might add to your watering. You just got to keep that in mind. Shading hoops and tunnels. You can buy these, you can make these. PVC pipe, we're actually gonna make something similar today. But it's pretty much some kind of frame. I've actually, in emergency and ice apocalypse, took my tent poles from all my mountaineering tents and stuck them in the ground and threw stuff over. I mean, I have sheets and blankets, and I didn't have anything, which from the slide room, get all your resources first. And then you don't get in trouble when your wife's sheets are out on your garden. Yeah. Water floating road covers, frost protection, early year increases yield. The floating ones, is pretty much you can move them. Like I know at the Red Barn, they made some permanent hoops and they stick them in the ground. Those, if you make them in a frame like this out of PVC, you can move them around. Mine are, since I'm in beds, mine are all fixed, which you'll see, but there is some benefit into making floating ones, because then you can move them. Like if your peas need shade here, but then they don't, and you can move it, and it kind of keeps the cost down, keeps the amount of equipment you need down. All right, make your own. Like I said, PVC. I love PVC. I do so much. My house is almost built with PVC. We're actually going to make these, and we're actually going to do the row covers. But you're going to see the way we do it is for the beds. If you don't have a bed, just stake them into. The only difference is you would just stake them into the ground. Here are some examples of what they look like. Here, this is what it should. And you can see, you'll see a lot where they just put it right over the plant. You gotta kind of be careful with that. It's good in an emergency, but you really don't want the plant supporting your row cover. And in fact, you don't want the plant touching your row cover, because the way I grow my tomatoes, I actually had to make my row covers bigger because I grow them in an angle, and they stick out the side of my box. So I can't make the row covers the size of my box because the plants kind of rub against them. And it's not so much the material is bad for it, but if the plant, they're not totally windproof, and if the plant's just rubbing against the material, you're going to scar the plant and cause problems. But like I said, in a crunch, that'll work short term. It'll get you through a night, and then go out and just put some sticks in the ground and just lift it up a little bit off the plants. Row cover management, it depends on what you have on there. Okay, if you've got insect cloth on there, I can leave that on all the time. If I've got frost cloth on there, as long as the frost cloth gives you enough light through. Some frost cloth, you're only going to get maybe 50%. Some you'll get 70%. Some can even go 90%. The problem is the 90% stuff's only going to protect you to about like 30, 32 degrees. It's not a hard frost. If it doesn't give your plants enough light, you have to take it on, off and on, okay? Same with the shade cloth. A lot of the shade cloth is made so that it has an adequate, like you buy 50 shade cloth, 70 shade cloth, and then I think from 70 you get 80, 85, 90. All the way down to 30, it only lasts 30%. Shade cloth needs to come off and on in times. You look like you had a question. No? Yeah. So if I want to see if I can get, I'm feeling saucy and I want to see I can get something through August, and I go buy 30 shade cloth, that's a daily thing. I get on and off. How long do they last is another thing. They'll last, if you take care of them, and at the end of the season, you let them dry out completely. Like hang them on a fence in some dry weather, let them dry out, package them really nice. So you'll get several years of service, even out of this lower end of the materials. Row covers, I've done this. I put my row covers on, I'm like, oh, it's great, it's good, I'm gonna leave them on there. Well, my row cover was so good that my air temperature got up to like 90, 95 degrees, and I'm like, oh great, I'm cooking my plants off. Yeah, about 80 degrees, if your row cover is getting your plants above 80 degrees, you need to take them off, let them cool down. Even my little tulip jars, I take them off, let some air circulate, let them cool down. Like that side of the house gets afternoon sun, so I'll pull them off, let stuff heat up, air out, and then right before I go to bed, I'll put them back on. Right. Weights. This is what I was talking about, the different levels, and I think there's thin stuff, thick stuff. Remember the slides where it's broken down into the three, lightweight, medium weight, and heavyweight? That's pretty much what it is. You just got to understand the BIOS. If you need a heavyweight row frost cover that is going to protect down to maybe 20 degrees, you are going to pay for that in light transfusion, okay? Medium weight row covers, they can get you down to about 28 degrees. Actually, this is really dependent on what you buy, and this used to be something where there wasn't a lot out there. I just went and bought my cloth, and there are options for all kinds of stuff out there. So you got to figure out what you need, what you want, and what your actual material will do. Paul?
That air temperature or ground temperature?
This is air temperature, frost temperature. Yeah, we're concerned with frost here. So yeah, look at what you get. I know the Johnny Seeds catalog, they have a whole bunch of it in there, frost cloth, insect cloth, shade cloth. Look at the specifications before you buy it. What it's going to go down to, how much light it's going to let in. Row cover weights, we're going to go through that. How long do I have?
As long as you want.
Like, am I the only one today?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Officially, sir, you were scheduled until 12:50.
Oh, okay. Well, but that last 50 minutes, we're going to have to do the.
Breaks and so.
Yeah, we're going to have to do the project. All right, we're going to buzz through the plan in the garden real fast. Okay, things that can. So, question number one: who is going to do the work? Right? Are you doing very important question. Always ask that question. And then if you go to elicit volunteers, make sure you get it in writing, duplicate, triplicate, okay? Yeah, sir. Someone said to get started, tear up grass and topsoil, dig up large rocks and roots. When I started my garden, I was trying to do it in the ground, and I went and rented an excavator from Home Depot. I did a 20 by 20 foot square. I dug 1 foot deep. I have a pile of rocks, 4 feet wide, 3 feet high from here to that wall. Yeah. Right in the garden beds, raised beds. So, I mean, it takes a lot of getting it started. My wife keeps asking me when gardening's going to be fun, right? I'm like, honey, we're still, once I get everything set that I want and then everything's good, then it's going to be fun, honey. Yeah, but when's that going to be? I don't know, 2027. You might need to put a fence on deer. Who loves the deer around here? Beautiful, right? Oh, I've got deer all over the place. We can only grow natives in our front yard. Deer eat stuff here I've never seen deer eat. Bougainvillea, they'll eat the thorns off the bougainvillea. Yeah, I had them devastate bougainvillea plants. Crepe myrtles, they'll eat crepe myrtles. Yeah, I didn't think anything could eat a crepe myrtle and live, but yeah, they do. And you need to build raised beds. So there is a manual labor investment when you get started, okay? You need to figure out who's doing that and then size that accordingly. I think, oh, did you see on the bottom where it said start small? Yeah. Yeah, nah, I'd go big or go home. But yeah, know what you can do. The size of your yard is going to probably dictate most of that. But know what you can do. How much time is it going to take? So the size of your garden, condition of your garden, how you get your season, your plants, right? Are you going to germinate all your plants or are you going to buy all your plants? I germinate all my plants, and for the last 3 weeks, I've been spending 15 to 20 hours a week germinating plants. Okay, that's a big time investment. That's why I'm going and getting onion sets. So it usually takes 8 to 16 hours maybe to clear out what they say about a 16 to 10 foot garden, to get it all ready and everything. Another 12 to 16 hours to plant the whole garden. 30 minutes per day to water, weed, feed, and stuff. Harvest 1 to 5 minutes. We'll get into harvesting. It depends on what you grow. It's not taking me 1 to 5 minutes to harvest 34 tomato plants, okay? How much, this is the big thing, how much space you have available. I have a lot of space available, which was just probably the initial thing that got me in trouble. But yeah, use what you can do. There are methods, and we'll get a little into the production planning. If you only have a small space, there are methods that you can look up and use to squeeze as much into that space as possible. You need to order seeds early, make sure you get them. You should be getting your seeds December, January, so that you can start germinating them. Some vegetables are easily started by seeds. I germinated 3 sets of peppers and none of them came up. I have 4 pepper seeds and I just put some more in and they started. And I was like, it's weird. Some things grow, some things don't, some things germinate, some things don't. I will say as you're looking at seeds and you're trying to figure, you put more in than you think you're going to plant. Okay, maybe 10, 15% more, or like I said, I do, in each plug I put 2 seeds. That gives me twice the opportunity to actually get a plant in that plug. Okay.
Unless it's squash.
Yeah, squash will germinate. I can germinate squash on concrete.
Oh my God.
Yeah, found that out last year. I had 23 squash plants. I still have squash in the freezer. Yeah.
If I could say something, on his last slide, when he's talking about ordering seeds early, if you're really into maybe some of the latest hybrids or really popular things, and you go into your desktop or wherever, you may need to go in and start ordering those seeds in late October, November, because you go to parks and a lot of these others and you go, oh man, that's what I want. Sold out.
Yeah.
Sold out. And they're sold out until the next season. So
Yeah.
plan accordingly. Thank you.
Yeah, like I said, and you'll get the swing of it. What things are really easy to get, what things aren't really easy to get. I could just go into bees. There was a big bee death this year, they're like 50%, and they're saying you're not going to get you're probably not going to be able to get a lot of queens in April because all the producers need them. Same thing with seeds. You know, maybe their seeds in Germany or they didn't get something. So yeah, it's a good idea to just, like I said, be prepared, get all your resources ahead of time. And that's what winter's for. Looking through the seed, thumb through the seed catalog. Oh, look at that. Right, you know, the 150 things that I want, and then actually order the 10. But, oh, sorry, know what you're going to do with your vegetables, right? Have a plan, right? It doesn't do any good to grow 615 pounds of tomatoes and let them rot on the vine. I mean, a worst case scenario, what I don't use, we donate. But we can freeze a lot.
Who do you donate to?
Christian Cupboard over here in Seguin, or there's another place in New Braunfels. Just there's food banks all over, charity food banks. My brother-in-law has a company over here in Seguin. I give it to his employees. You know, I found you can give food away pretty easily. That's not the issue. We go back, repeat, like I said, grow what you eat, what's difficult, and make sure that the varieties work here. So let's look real fast into crop families. All right, I don't speak Latin. So you have the daisy family, endive, chicory, artichoke, sunflower. You have beetroot family, the carrot family, cabbage. The idea is these plants are related, so they will have similar growing needs, but not always. Every plant is different. You can get away, like I have a method for growing pumpkins because I'm required to have jack-o'-lanterns in October. Required, yes. I have a really good method for growing pumpkins, and I could use that method to grow watermelons, cantaloupe, cucumbers, zucchini, squash, and all of that. If I'm looking to grow the Guadalupe County State Fair squash next year, I'm not using that general method. You got to get into the actual plant and really baby and pamper it. We're gonna be talking, I put the families up here because we're gonna be talking generally. This should work general and be well, and good methods for broad ranges of things. But like I said, if you want the blue ribbon, you got it specifically for that plant. So in the big scheme of things, all of these groups have a certain planting, maintenance requirement that they like across the board. And then if you go down one level deeper, each individual plant then has its own planting, maintenance, and nutritional requirements that it wants. So like I said, this is you go as deep as you want to go. When we get to fertilizer, you're going to see how deep I went. But you got to keep this in mind because these are also grouped. Some are warm, like all the pea family, they're cold weather crops, you know. Potato cold, it all ties together in the families, but I want to say there's a level of, this abstracts a level of abstraction so you can think of groups of vegetables, okay, my brassicas or my cabbages or stuff, and then plan for that. Temperature crops, cooler crops, okay? These are, I know, see, we have kale up there. My goal is to grow kale all year this year, just by the way. These are the ones will handle a light frost or light freezing. In fact, turnips don't actually get really, and kale, get sweeter if they get a frosting. There are some plants that it'll actually improve their flavor if they get a little bit of cold at the end, like the fall. You know, maybe you want to harvest it in November. You're like, oh wait, there's going to be a little chill here. I'll harvest it next week, get that chill. It actually tastes better. Sweet spot, 55 to 85 degrees. That pretty much covers everything in general, okay? Air temperature. And then hotter crops, 85 to 100. Pumpkins, tomatoes, okra, peppers, collards, eggplant. They don't have sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes love hot weather. It's one of the best things to grow if you're going to grow something across July and August. I feed my dog sweet potatoes now. I feed all my kids sweet potatoes now. I have sweet potato puree. I have frozen sweet potato. I've got sweet potato. It grows like a weed. It was amazing. I'm just watching it. Cooler crops. Like I said, you have this and go through. Daisy family, onion family. Okay, hotter crop. Morning Glory family. Did I go backwards? Okay. Cool crops, cabbage family, all right. Spring, autumn start. This is our typical growing season, right, for the cooler. We're going to have a big, long spring season that we can grow in. We're going to have a shorter fall season. They're not going to do very well at all in summer. And for the most part, the December, January, beginning of February is a little too cold for some of the cooler crops. That's not hard and fast because there are kale that can go through the hard parts of the winter. Summer, warm. Peas, beans, kidney. I know at the Big Red Barn we put peas in. I think they put them in June. And they did all right. They needed a little shade. Like we had to put shade covers on them and everything, but they did pretty well. And then very warm eggplant. Peppers, anyone grow chilies? Yeah, I love chilies. Potatoes, tomatoes. I'm gonna disagree a little bit on tomatoes because tomatoes will have a tendency to drop their flowers and stop fruiting at 90 degrees. So 90 degrees, the 80 to 90 degree air temperature is like a little warmer than the general, so you could call it a warm, but tomatoes react poorly to hot temperatures.
But you know what, the cherry tomatoes grow good.
Yeah, cherry tomatoes. If you're trying to grow a big old best boy slicing tomato, even Roma tomatoes I found last year, when it started getting warm, they kind of were like, whoa, what is this? Okay, going to they went on vacation for a little bit.
It's kind of funny about the tomatoes because A&M did a deal where they put black plastic around the tomato cages when they first put them in. They took off like Jack's beanstalk.
Yeah.
So they really let it hot and warm
When they're little.
early on and back off.
Yeah, like,
Kind of like us.
yeah, exactly. 2 years ago, when we had that really, really warm summer, I had 6 foot tomato plants. They might have had 1 or 2 tomatoes on them. I took care of those things all season long, everything. They looked beautiful. I mean, it was like hedgerow, these tall, nice green leaves. I think I got enough tomatoes to make a sandwich, right?
So it's I almost said dirt. The soil temperature is what you're talking about.
No, this is air temperature.
Air
and soil.
temperature?
Yeah, air and soil.
Oh, shit, a lot.
Yeah, 85. Yeah.
And wind.
And tomato, we haven't gotten to wind yet. Yeah. Like that's garden in Texas, guys. No, it's great. And the other way you can plan out is by short and long. How long it takes how long the plant's got to be in the ground. It's got to be in 5 weeks, it's got to be in 10 weeks, it's got to be in 10 to 15 weeks, 15 to 20 weeks, and then you can plan out like this. If you see these slides, there's several different categories that are coming, and we're going to actually get to the finale where we can actually plan stuff out. But these are short stay stuff, garden cress mustard, radishes. Who puts radishes everywhere you get free dirt? Yep. You can even put them, carrot, radish, and your radishes will come up before the carrots. Like peas, my garden, my trellises along the one side. I grow all my pea plants and radishes all the way across the front, and beets on some of them. Yeah, radishes are one of those, I think it's 50 days? 30 days for radishes.
33 days.
Yeah, you can grow radishes anytime dirt opens up. Radishes. The longer ones, Brussels sprouts. Grew Brussels sprouts last year. They did pretty well. I got a lot of them going in this year. Cauliflower, New Zealand spinach, the regular spinach. I mean, that's fast. I've not grown New Zealand spinach. Parsnips, peppers, a lot of the root vegetables. I mean, potatoes is like 120 days. The root vegetables are going to take a long time because they have to, if you think about the root vegetables, they have to grow their roots out. Then they have to grow their greens out. And then they have to grow the tubers out. So it takes a little while. Okay, highs and lows. Now this is still air temperature, okay? You want to protect nighttime low, is it above 60? Plants actually like temperature differentials, right? If it's warm, like the ideal is a 75-degree day and a 55-degree night. That's like the ideal sweet spot that plants like. They want that differential in the night and day. That's why desert is too much. There's some places where you don't get that. It might be 80 during the day and then 75, 70, or like deserts, it's 100 during the day and 40 at night. That's too much. But they do like the difference in temperatures. Summary: crop families. How can you connect? Okay, how do you connect all this to a calendar that you can actually grow by? Here we go. I've been waiting for this. All right. All that information we went over, all those different variables, and all those different things you have to keep in mind. Is it going to open? Oh, there we go. All right. Let me maximize this. There we go. All right. This is my garden planner. It's Excel. It's just make little pictures. It's not hard. It's and this is actually only the.
That many beds.
I have twice as many beds because this is only the half of it actually. And in fact, when we build these two, I'm going to have two more. I did. My wife helps. She helps level, and she helps fill. She's really she likes to fill the beds. But the fall layout is this. Come on.
How tall are your beds?
1 foot. Not now.
Do you ever do like the open garden bed? No container, just.
No. There's a specific, I've seen that too when you just do the math. I thought about doing the mounds. I have a very specific reason why I don't, which has nothing to do with gardening. Here you go. This is on that thumb drive. All you have to do is you put in today's date, you put in your frost date, and it tells you exactly when you need to germinate, exactly when you need to sow, exactly when you should expect to harvest, exactly when you need to put it in the ground. Okay?
Did you create that?
I stole most of this from Seeds from Generations, Bill Nodine, but I add to it like with frost protection. No frost protection. Okay, so if you don't want to do it. So for instance, and it seems to be getting cut off a little bit.
That's because you have it.
Okay.
You need to do it where it's on. Okay.
Yeah, so for instance, this top row is basil, okay? Can't see that. So basil's transplant, okay? It easily transplanted, you might as well transplant it. It takes 7 days to germinate, and needs to germinate 75 to 85 degree soil temperature. that's ideal. It'll germinate lower than that if you don't have heat mats, but that's ideal. All right? So as of 18 February, we should so outdoor plant after first frost, 14. So start indoors, 20 January. I started my basil indoors on 20 January. Plant in ground, 17 March. So 17 March, 5 days before, I'm going to start hardening them off. 17 March, I'm going to go out there and I'll put them in their little spots.
Will you be wearing the green?
What's that?
Will you be wearing the green on March 17th? Or planting the green?
Yeah, I got to get it done early because I might have other activities that day. I don't, is it the 18th of February? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So days left to plant outside. I still have 29, still about 29 days that I need to plant it outside. Days left, okay. And then here's with, if I do have frost protection, I could actually start germinating them on January 6th. I could plant them in ground on March 3rd. I still have 43 days to get them in the ground, days left to plant outside. Okay, days to maturity, you can see, okay, 70 days, what's 160? Brussels sprouts, yep. This is the second year I'm doing Brussels sprouts. They take forever to grow, but there's, some people pick them into, I wait for the whole stalk to get done because it looks neat. Earliest harvest date, look, May, April. There's an August right there. There's a July right there, but May, June, April, May, March, June, April. Run the race. If you can get all the bulk of your produce out of your garden by the end of July, you're
A success.
end of June. Did I say July? By the end of June, which you should be able to do. That's the goal. And then you go take a break, go tube the river, do something, and then start all over again the end of August. What? Yeah. You spend July and August canning. And then, again, your harvest date with no frost protection and with frost protection. You see, with frost protection, I mean, you're even like March, you're harvesting.
One of those cute little sayings like your corn should be knee-high by the 4th of July doesn't apply to that.
If you're in New England, folks.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Illinois it does.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I want to point out is all of this information is based on averages. It's based on light averages, weather averages, okay? We get freak things that happen, like, where's peas? Is peas on here? Yeah. Some of these things, plant in ground, 20 January. Peas was one of them because I was like, oh, I got to plant peas 20. I'm looking, it's 20 January. My peas aren't in yet because you got to look at the weather. I mean, 20 January, and then the next couple of weeks it was way too cold. Also went out and checked my soil temperature. If you don't, you can get these. They're like 10, 15 bucks. They'll do soil and moisture. It was way too cold to put the peas. I haven't put my peas in yet. So this is a good guideline. This is your structure on how you schedule your planting. You got to throw some common sense factors in there. It's like, hey, we're about to get 3 weeks of 20 degrees. I'm not planting my peas in January, okay? But you get the same.
Bjorn, you said this is on our slide.
Yep, that one's on your slide. This is for the spring. And you got the same one for the fall. For your fall garden, the same. It automatically gives today's date, and you just got to make sure you update the first frost date. And then this, I haven't done this one yet. The other one is actually what I'm got growing right now. You can tell the yellow is kind of what I was planning. I haven't messed with this one. I don't know what the dates are on this one, but got the same information with frost protection, with no frost protection. Like I said, frost protection, if you look at it, it gives you 2 weeks. Almost 14 days, right? Is that math right? Yes, 14 days. The frost protection, even a light frost cloth, will extend you out 2 weeks. or actually move you earlier 2 weeks. You can either plant 2 weeks earlier or plant 2 weeks later on average. The other thing that's on here, which is actually on your thumb drive, come on, there we go. I don't succession plant, so, well, yet, but this is a succession plant calculator. Again, you put the date, you put the date in, and then you put your first planting in, and then well, see, right now it's too late to do any succession plant, but then it'll populate out, depending on the vegetable, when you start your second planting, your third planting, fourth planting, fifth planting, and they're different. Some are you would succession plan every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. Does it all for you. Like I said, we could have not talked at all this morning, and I could have just given you this, but yeah, that'll get you through the succession planning. Where are we on time?
When you're talking about succession planting here, that's in your same bed, right?
Yes. Oh, it could be. It doesn't need to be, though.
I do mine different. I do, like tomatoes, I'll grow the big beefy ones, heirloom tomatoes, and then I will cut them off, and then I have the next group that'll come in will be my cherry tomatoes.
Yeah,
So
that's more of a rotation. Yeah, I'm talking like, so succession planting is like onions, right? Onions store pretty well, but they're not okay. So I'm gonna plant a row of onions, okay? 2 weeks later, I'm gonna plant another row of onions. And 2 weeks later, I'm gonna plant another row. For however many weeks I can do that, depending on when we're gonna hit summer, okay? So then, how am I harvesting them? I'm gonna harvest that first row, and then I get more 2 weeks later. It's a way to, like, to stagger out your food supply. Yeah, where I get everything as much as fast as possible as I can, and then preserve if I want onions or radishes or something like that to last throughout a longer harvest period. It extends your harvest period. Okay, I'm gonna get back to this. Site selection. Let me see where we are real fast. What time is it? 11. All right, I'm going to go through this, skip to watering. If we have time, we'll go. Site selection's important. All right, I know there's a way to do this, so I can just go right to watering. Oh, that wasn't it. What time? It's 11. We've been going for an hour 20. Why don't we take, I really need to go through watering. I really need to go through fertilizer. Class is over at what, 1? So by 12, yeah, why don't we take a 10-minute break? We've been at it a while. Watering and fertilizer, because these are where a lot of the problems come from. And if we have time, we'll site selection. There's some things you probably should think about, but these are the key ones. Okay, watering. Plants need water, obviously. So I really need to go over transpiration. Plants do this every afternoon. They just kind of like let off steam, and they're gonna look like they wilt. Okay, and then you're gonna walk out and cruise in your garden in the early evening, and all your stuff's just gonna kind of be bent over and drooping, and you're gonna go, oh no, I need to water. Don't water. If they don't spring back by tomorrow morning, you need to water. This is a normal process they do every day. Even now, my germination plants are big enough, they transpire. I walked out and yeah, they're kind of droopy, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, that's their kind of like tea time. They're like, oh, I don't have to stand up as straight, we're out of the office. Okay, I'm just gonna take a break. So this is something you need to just keep in mind, and it kind of throws people, but it's a normal process. Okay, how to water. Hand watering with a hose. That's what I do. Love it because I'm not carrying buckets anymore. Soaker hoses and drip irrigation. This, I'm eventually going to, at least for the crops I'm really worried about, probably go, because the problem with the hand watering is you have to physically be there, right? If I want to go somewhere, vacation, I got to try and bribe someone to go water. So this is probably one of the most convenient ways to go. Portable sprinklers, you can do that too. I might do that, set up on a timer before I run. The problem with the soaker hoses and the drip irrigation is you sometimes have to pull it in the winter, right? Unless you can get it drained really well. If you don't pull it in the winter, it's going to pop all your drip lines, just like everyone drains their irrigation systems. Same thing here. So if you get this very complicated, just keep in mind you may have to be putting this out and pulling it in every season. Watering vegetables, hot and dry weather should not matter, because you're not watering the vegetables, you're watering the soil, right? You want to keep the soil at a good moisture level. Like the moisture meters are a good way to look at that. But the top couple inches are going to dry out, okay? Unless you're seeding at that point, that's okay. It's really the 2 to 6 inches down. That's where all the feeder roots generally are for most of the plants that we have. So if you water and just because the top of your bed is dry might not mean you need water, because a good garden soil can hold about 2 to 4 inches of water in it. Water deeply, okay? This is my one thing with why I haven't done the drip yet, is because I haven't figured out how deeply that waters. The plant roots are going to be 6 to 8 inches, 4 to 8 inches. You need to get that water down, okay? A lot of water needs to go in. Just watering the top, you can just do this, just water the top for a little bit. What you think might be enough water, and then rake it up. You probably only hit an inch, okay? It will eventually, gravity and capillary action will pull it down, but your water, but if it's sunny, that inch is going to evaporate before it goes down into the soil. So you need to water deeply. Wilting plants, like I said, outside of transpiration. If it's 5 o'clock and your plants are wilting, check your soil if you can. Check your soil. Just, the finger test, right? You stick your finger in and you should feel wet about at least the first part of it. If it's dry, down to 4 inches and stuff, yeah, you need to water in the afternoon. If it's not dry, it's probably transpiration, and they're gonna pop back. You need to water more when it's windy. Wind evaporates it. Wind actually has a lot of bad effects on plants. Like my tomatoes, when I put my tomatoes in, I have to actually wrap them for the first couple months. I'm up on a bluff and I'm exposed, so I'll get a good wind. And wind, if you don't know, wind is horrible for tomato plants. Not a nice little breeze, but the wind I get that lifted my last greenhouse off, that wind's bad for a tomato house. Okay, water when it rains. Do not assume that just because it rained enough for your plants, all right? If you do have a good rain, and it does rain, at least go out and check, okay? How wet is that soil? Stick your hand in the soil. How deep did that rain get? If it didn't get 4 to 6 inches, you're still gonna have to water. Don't spray or sprinkle plants. This was that whole overhead sprinkler thing, all right? Has a tendency to keep them especially in our humidity, it keeps them too moist. You're gonna start getting fungus and mold and then have to deal with all that stuff. Yep.
So if you're watering with a hand hose, you're not hitting the plant?
No, I have one of those wands,
And you go by the root.
and I just stand there down by the water. Yeah, and like I said, don't water lightly, it's a little redundant. Yeah, you need to deep water. Okay, plants, okay, plants grow at night. They make all their energy and everything during the day, and they put it in the places, and then the lights go out and they grow, okay? If you water early in the, see, I almost had to, where I grew up, we have a water, and I've kind of got the water accent. If you water early in the morning, okay, even if you, all right, that water's going to evaporate all day long, and maybe you put an inch in, but after evaporation, your plants are only going to get a half inch. So you got to think about that. If you water midday, it's going to be even worse. I mean, that water's going to evaporate almost as soon as you put it down. So watering the late afternoon, okay, allows more time to percolate down into the soil, and then all that water is available for the nutrients to go into solution to help the plants grow. For the plants to grow, they need all the carbohydrates and sugars and stuff that they produce, and then they need all the nutrients from the soil to actually put on more leaves and stuff.
Aren't they resting?
No, they're growing.
I mean, you just said before that they're drooping, and now you're saying, so don't water them, but now you're saying water them.
Don't water them because they're drooping. Like so like late afternoon, I water right before, like, I don't know, when dusk, I don't know what sunset is.
Just come out.
Yeah. I mean, I try and water an hour before dark. Okay, I'm not I would consider that 4 o'clock one, I would consider that mid-afternoon. I'm not going to water at 4 o'clock because one is probably, if they're wilting, it's probably transpiration, and two, most of that water is going to evaporate. I'm watering after dinner, actually. We eat early. So if your dinner's at like 5 o'clock, water afterwards. Yep. Okay. Garden plants that have not been watered properly are not going to develop roots. Plants, when you put a plant in the ground, it builds its roots, then it builds its greens, and then it fruits for you. So you may put your plants in the ground, and you're not, tomato plants are notorious for this. You're going to put them in the ground in the first week or two, you're not going to see them grow because they're now out of that 4-inch pot and they are building roots out, all right? Once they build, they instinctively know how much root they need to get to their determined, if you're doing determinants, determined height. And that's what they're focused on. You get them in the ground, they are focusing on getting roots so they can collect enough nutrients. Once they get that root ball is big enough for what they need, they will start growing again. We went through the 1 inch of water baseline. 1 inch of water is good for March, April. When you get into May, you're going to need more water. You're just going to need it. The shiny, this was in here. I left it in here. When you're watering, you'll see not water pooling, but you kind of get that glimmer. You look for that glimmer. However long it takes that glimmer to go away kind of gives you an idea. I consider that like a rule of thumb or whatever. Inch of water minimum, and if that doesn't work, I do an inch and a half. That way I know, because there could be stuff that affects that. If the soil compacted a little more, that shine is going to last longer. So, but it's one way, especially if you're hand watering. Cultivating, lightly cultivating, breaking up that top crust that sometimes forms before watering does wonders. I mean, you don't need to, I mean, we're talking that half inch, right? Just break it up so it's loose. That'll help your water drop faster. All right, avoid shallow watering. The reason you don't want to water shallow is, like I said, your roots are like 4 to 8 inches, the feeder roots, the main part of that. If you water shallow, all those roots are then going to turn and try and grow in that water zone that's right next to the surface that dries out like that. And you're going to get bad results from that. I mean, the roots are going to dry out. You're not going to get enough absorption. The minerals up there, you're not going to get. You want to a root base down, 4 to 8 inches. You want to make sure your water is getting down there, and keep your roots down there, because the soil then protects the roots from the Texas sun, it protects it from wind, it protects it from weather, keeps a relatively even temperature. Of course, avoid overwatering. This is a common mistake. Roots actually breathe, okay? They absorb all the nutrients and stuff through solution and microorganisms and stuff, but they actually do absorb some oxygen and stuff and breathe. If you water too much, you're basically drowning the roots. Postponing irrigation. I did this morning. I was going to get up real early and water my transplants. I'm like, they'll last until this afternoon. But yeah, if you see your plants need water, they need water right then, okay? If they're wilting brown. So we said how, hey, if plants are overwatered, they turn yellow. Hey, if plants are underwatered, they turn yellow. If they're underwatered, they turn yellow for a little bit and then they start browning. All right, if you see any little bit of browning or whatsoever, or extreme wilt, transpiration wilts the leaves and the leaf stem. If your main stem is wilting, you probably need water. Don't delay, don't do it. Don't do me and wait for the afternoon or your normal watering time. If you see a water stress system or symptom, it needs to be watered right then and there. Just to highlight, all that watering is in general, and this is your blue ribbon at the county fair, because tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, peppers need different water requirements. Like tomatoes need a lot of water when they start fruiting, okay? They make the big old, especially the big one, you make this big old water-filled tomato. They need, like some tomatoes need about 2 gallons of water per plant per week to keep your tomatoes. If you don't water, they crack, and then you also get flower rot. Has anyone ever seen that? You see a nice big tomato and you turn it over and like the bottom 1/3 is just flat and black, lack of water. Corn. This is more. You guys can look this up, but this is also in those little sheets that are on your drive. It's in your book. Any handbook you get that just lists out vegetables will have this kind of information in it. And more water. All right, fertilize. Excuse me. Like I said, we're going to go a little deep into this because this is, yeah. Oh no, you guys don't understand. So whenever I go to the whiteboard, it's getting serious. Okay. Fertilizing is one of the hardest things to get down, the most complicated thing to understand, the most contentious point between gardeners, yet it is the most vital thing you can do for your plants, right? If you don't feed your plants, nothing happens. Okay, so points to remember. When we think about fertilizer, all of us think about going buying the bag at the store, right? How many think about mixing their own fertilizer? All right, we got some. That was better than my class. No one raised their hand in my class, so good. Food for plants doesn't need to be prepackaged. I'm sorry, this is a little hippy dippy. But nutrients available. The nutrients that your plants get have gone through so many steps before from that bag of fertilizer. You put the fertilizer on the soil, it gets eaten by microbes. Microbes release smaller compounds into the ground, which then are dissolved by water, which then get taken up by the roots, which then get produced into the proteins, vitamins, and minerals that the plants need. Okay, so the easy way to think about it, you feed the soil feeds the microbes feed the plants. Like I said, way back when we started 3 weeks ago, it seems like you're custodians of soil. 3 basic, what you need, soil needs chemical elements in it in order to feed the plants. It needs water and it needs microbes. Without each one of that's like the triangle. Without those three things, nothing's going to grow. We just actually went over this nutrition. I got ahead of myself. The nutrient uptake process, like I said, you fertilize the ground, microbes in the soil take the big compounds that we use and turn it into better compounds for the plants, and the plants then use that. We're going to get into a little bit of the synthetic organic discussion. I'm not going to fire that flame too much, but you have to realize synthetic and liquid fertilizers were specifically developed to work faster. That's why they exist, because the big acre farmers needed their fertilizer to hit the ground running. Okay, so way back, about 725 slides, we had that little box that had the 3 different methods of fertilizer, and the bottom one was like the once-in-a-lifetime thing. This is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. When you start your garden, you need to make sure you're getting the potassium in, you're getting the phosphorus in, you're getting the nitrogen in, the micronutrients. Okay, you want to start with a good bed of soil, and then you just amend as you need. Test. In between testing, test. When you're done testing and you've tested all you think you can test, you need to take a break and test, okay? Not really. You test every 3 years. When you start and you first build your bed, you want to get a good soil test about every 3 years, just to see how, one, that's to check how your fertilization schedule's going. I think this is what, yep, okay, this is, all right. There are 3 categories of nutrients that plants need, okay? Everyone probably knows the first, right? Nitrogen, its useful form, NH4, SO4, and CH4. I'll explain that later. Okay, nitrogen, phosphorus, P2O5, and potassium. Okay. All right. These are the main ones. Every bag of fertilizer you get, this is how they're calculating it. You see those 3 numbers on the fertilizer bag, right? You buy a bag and it's 6, 12, 6. That bag is 6% nitrogen, 12% phosphorus, and 6% potassium. And I'm going to apologize right now. I'm a left-handed male doctor, so I'm writing as best I can. And that's pretty much what the bulk of for how they classify and build fertilizer. And you can get all kinds of stuff. You can get 001 and 11, 11, 11, and run the gamut on the different percents you need. Okay. Second group. Consider these macronutrients. Okay. The second group is calcium. And that is CaSO4. Calcium, magnesium. That's also a sulfate, and sulfur. All right, nitrogen helps the plant grow, but phosphorus aids in plant reproduction and root development. Potassium is just used everywhere. I mean, it's even in your handbooks, it'll kind of describe and it says potassium is vital for plant growth. That means it's used in a lot of places and can't. All right, calcium is a main substance in your cell walls. So if you want your plants to grow, they need to make cells. And in order to make cells, they need to make cell walls. And cell walls in plants are different than cell walls in people. They're hard and rigid because they don't have skeletons. Magnesium is essential for the formation of chlorophyll. It's not actually in, it's one of the tools that plants use to make chlorophyll. And then sulfur is essential in proteins, the production and use of proteins and vitamins. Okay, so if you want to, does everyone know that your body really doesn't absorb vitamin C without this certain enzyme, right? Nature's so cool, if you eat an orange, all the white pith that no one eats is chock full of the enzyme that you need to absorb vitamin C. Yeah, so eat your piths. And then the last group, we have boron. All right, this one is N2B4050H4. Boron is also important in cell wall development. You don't have to write this down. Or if you want to take a picture. We have boron, we have copper. Iron, copper is a catalyst. It's like the fuse that starts a lot of chemical reactions that the plants need to do. Iron, FeSO. Iron is an essential building block for chlorophyll. Iron, manganese. And this one is manganese sulfate. Manganese is very important in all the enzymes, okay? You know, you have your vitamins and your minerals. Enzymes in plants and people tell the plant what to do with all the minerals and vitamins that you're taking in. Magnesium has a big role in that. Molybdenum, that's Na2MOO. Molybdenum is essential for fixating nitrogen. And then zinc. Okay, zinc is also an essential tool in the production of chlorophyll. All right, so plant needs all of these elements, right? I said useful forms. Like nitrogen's a gas. How do you get a gas into the soil? Potassium, pure potassium reacts violently in water, like it explodes in water. So these are all the naturally occurring forms that you're gonna find, like you don't mine potassium, you mine, what's that, potassium, I forget, you mine K2CO3. You don't mine boron, you mine sodium tetraboride oxide, okay? You don't, these are what you find in nature, and this is the only thing I'm gonna get into in the synthetic organic argument. Whether you get your magnesium sulfate from cow manure or a synthetically manufactured fertilizer, magnesium sulfate is the same. The argument with the synthetic fertilizers is you get things you don't know about. They've got binders in there, transport agents in there, just byproducts of the chemical process that might be left in there, which you don't know about. They're not listed on the bag. They could be harmful for you. So that's the whole gist. But when you look at the actual ingredients that the plant needs, these are the same whether you're doing organic fertilization or you're using synthetic fertilization. I'm not going to pick a side for you. You guys choose. So this is what the plant needs. We can't manipulate these humanly. We can't use them. We can't apply them. Nature can't either. So we need the complex compounds that are found in the earth, and that's what we give our plants. So how do we get from the plant, what the plant needs, what we can actually handle, to something that you guys can put on the ground, okay? This right here is ammonium sulfate. I'm just gonna put ammonium sulfate. It's a 2100, all right? You can buy this in 40-pound bags. Commercial grade, it's 98.7% pure. So it is ammonium sulfate, nothing else in it. This right here is urea, and that's a 4600. You can also buy this in 40-pound bags, and it's better than 98. It's 99%, like commercial grade. I'm not laboratory, commercial grade. So why? You can see we have the ammonium sulfate. It's 2146. So pound by pound, if I use urea, I'm getting twice as much nitrogen, right? And urea, if you get all the organic farming books and stuff, urea is listed as an organic fertilizer. The reason is we used to use ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate would have been this with that. So it has 3. It's triple strong nitrogen atoms, but it's also really good at making bombs. So like normal people can't get it in quantities anymore. If you're a commercial farmer and you're licensed and permitted and stuff, you can buy ammonium nitrate by the truckload, but we can't. So why would we even use this one? It's cheaper. It's probably 1/3 the cost of urea. And you're gonna see these being your macronutrients, this is a bulk of your fertilizer. If I mix 25 pounds of fertilizer, this is about 20 pounds. I need a big enough bulk so that I can put this stuff in, because if this is 20 pounds, that's a 1/4 ounce. Okay, you can't just mix a cup of fertilizer. You'd be measuring your like 0.0001 grams of zinc. Okay, yeah. Phosphorus, you just buy as phosphate. You just buy it in the store as phosphate. Superphosphate is one of the brands. And then this is potash. Everyone, you can buy Murrieta potash all day long, twice on Sundays. This phosphate is 0.450, and the potash is like a 0.60. It is really hard to find the really high phosphorus, 0.45. That's starting to be a problem. Okay, now the rest of this. Calcium sulfate, what do you think that is? Anybody got a guess? Anyone actually know?
Moisture shells.
It's gypsum. You know, the stuff in there is naturally harvested from the earth. You can buy it in bulk in a little bit. Magnesium. This one, Epsom salt. I got some. Yep, Epsom salt. Good for your bath, good for your vegetables, right? The one thing and you can get this at HEB. In fact, that's where I got this. The one thing with the Epsom salt, it's got to be fragrance free. So this is pure Epsom salt. If it's essence of lavender or tea, you know, you don't want those. You just want the pure Epsom salt. Where are we? Sulfur. Sulfur is kind of its own little thing. We don't care about putting it in fertilizer by itself because there's sulfur here, there's sulfur there, there's sulfur there. Sulfur, 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 sulfur. Plenty enough sulfur in all the other stuff you put in, so you don't have to worry about that. Boron. Like I said, this is sodium tetraborate decaoxate. Anyone know what this is? Borax. 20 mule team, discovered in Death Valley in the 1800s. Great for laundry. Yep, I literally dumped this in my fertilizer plant. The rest of these, you basically have to get individually. There's not any kind of cool grocery store trick for them. But the deal with that is, so here's copper sulfate, all right, 99% pure. This little bag's probably about 20 bucks. It'll last me 3 years because I only use an ounce of this, not even, for the nutrient mix. So when I started mixing my own fertilizer, it is cheaper. Yes?
I read that you can put the copper penny on the farm. Did that actually?
Yeah, I mean, yes, eventually. Two things are the problem with that. One, there's only about 0.01 millimeter of copper on that penny anymore. They're steel, and it'll take probably 3 years for that copper to come off of that penny. And then you're gonna make copper oxide, which plants they can eventually use it, it's harder for them. So the rest of these, like I said, you buy. Now, here's the thing. That seems like a lot of work, right? And who's, right. You don't really need to, this was just to prove a point of we can't handle this, okay? This is what you need, that's what the plants need. If you're gonna mix your own fertilizer, you gotta get a good recipe. So how do we take this, and in production class, I'll go through I'll give you guys a recipe if you want it. How do we go from this to a fertilizer schedule, okay? 750 slides ago, those 3 ways to fertilize, all at one time, and then weekly. 2, this is how I do it. I have a pre-plant fertilizer. It goes on before I plant, and then for anything that fruits continuously, every 6 weeks. Okay, that is just gypsum, Epsom salt, and borax. And the main reason for that is the calcium, because none of these other things carry the calcium natively, so you got to get calcium in there. That is enough to last the whole season. I'm good to go. And then a weekly fertilizer of everything else. Okay, this is how easy it is. I got a big bucket, I weigh it once every month, and I make my fertilizer and I put it in a Home Depot orange paint bucket with a lid. Because I took my pro tip and all the surface areas on my bed, this little can right here, this line is 5 ounces, 10 ounces. This is for my pre-plant. My pre-plant beds get 10 ounces. I go, walk down my beds. It takes 15 minutes to fertilize 42 beds. And it's fun. That's the fun part. This is not the fun, well, for most people, this is not the fun part, okay? So you need to make fertilizer simple. And there are ways, and I know I said from the beginning I wanted to go deep in this because fertilizer is really confusing and complex, and I don't think I uncomplexed it a lot, other than the fact that there are methods that you can use to make your own fertilizer, and you can shortcut this system. You can shortcut this system by getting a 16-16-16 fertilizer and then buying a nutrient pack and mixing it in there. All right, that's a little easier than...
Like Miracle-Gro?
No, they're specific nutrient packs. They're only little. I mean, they're maybe the size of seed packets.
Dry?
Yeah, it's a dry powder, yeah. You can do that. You can do it that way. What this does for you, one, I know exactly. My wife's flower beds get Miracle-Gro fertilizer because I don't eat those. Okay, I don't take this on my wife's flowers. They grow fine. I mean, I'm not eating it. I'm not eating it, well, except for the nasturtiums, but they're out in the veg garden, so I take care of those. She's in charge of the flowers, by the way. I do the vegetables. I know exactly what's going in. I know exactly what's coming out. That's my peace of mind, might be your peace of mind, whatever. That's the way to do it. Here is the reason, the actual reason why we go so deep into this. Understanding this is the foundation for being able to diagnose and troubleshoot your plants and then tweak your plants. 2 examples, right? This first one's fictitious. I just made it up. You have a friend who has a farm-to-market table or farm-to-market restaurant. He's like, hey, I want to make steak fries. I need Yukon potatoes. I want these potatoes to be uber great. Hey, Mr. Master Gardener, how can I make these potatoes uber great? Well, potatoes grow down in the ground, so they're not actually roots, but I consider them roots. So maybe tweak my phosphorus up a little bit, but which one of these did I say was vital in carbohydrate development? Anyone remember? I don't expect you to remember. It took me almost zinc. Zinc is vital in the formation of carbohydrates. What's a potato? It's a big block of carbohydrates. So I might also want to play with my zinc. okay? And that's how when you get down the road and like I want to grow 50 pounds of tomatoes on each tomato plant, this is where you start to be able to feed them to make those changes. The second one, which is more applicable right now, the diagnosing and fixing problems, all right? True story. I was stationed in California probably half of my time in the Navy, and my wife fell in love with iceberg roses, and they are these beautiful white roses, totally, absolutely not meant to grow in Texas whatsoever. But they're hardy enough to handle the winter, so I'm like, okay, we'll do it. Put them in the ground, they were fine, everything. A couple weeks later, the leaves start turning yellow. I'm like, oh, they need water. Moisture, no, they don't need water. I noticed the leaves were yellow, but all the veins were green. Okay, so my leaves are no longer green. I know chlorophyll makes my leaves green. I have a chlorophyll problem. Went inside, Googled it up. Yep, I felt really good too. I was like, yeah, got a chlorophyll problem. Yeah, Googled it up. Yeah, apparently when roses, okay, have a chlorophyll problem. Two major building blocks for chlorophyll in this are the nitrogen and the iron. So if I have a chlorophyll problem, I know the commercially bought fertilizer that I put on her roses has tons of nitrogen, so it's probably not that. I probably have an iron deficiency. That's when I went in, I Googled, and yeah, when you have yellow leaves with green veins on roses, it's an iron deficiency. Yay me. Wife, mom, they're like, yeah, honey. See, this class has paid off. How do you fix that? So I'm like, all I gotta do is just add a little more iron. So I mixed a little more iron into my fertilizer, nothing. The reason it didn't work is because iron is a building block and nitrogen is a building block. So think of it as like a conveyor belt, right? The plant knows how much chlorophyll it needs to make for a steady state. So it's like a car assembly line that can make 100 cars. Well, I'm iron deficient. So I need to make 1,000 cars, okay? So magnesium and again zinc are tools on the assembly line that make chlorophyll. So when I up the magnesium, up the iron, up the zinc, 10 to 12 days later, green leaves. Okay, I know, right? It's a lot to take in. This took me years to figure out, okay? You're not gonna walk out, just don't feel, I don't want you to feel, oh my goodness, I gotta know, it comes naturally. The more you read, I read a lot, do a lot, where am I on time? Oh, and hey, yeah, we gotta start doing the, we gotta start doing the boxes. That's why fertilization it's really important, not only because you got to feed your plants, but it's the foundation for all the other things you need to do. How do I fix this? How do I get tomatoes? How do I do that? So let's move on up. So that slide, how to feed, I don't know how to go back. Oh, maybe that's the back there. Okay, how to feed your plants. We're going to buzz through this because it's pretty simple. Feed your plants directly, not the main way to fertilize. All right, like your custodian's the soil. You feed the soil, soil feeds the organisms, organisms feed the plant. So why is this on here? Solve problems. If you get a cold spell, the soil gets cold, organisms don't work as fast and they slow down, your plant doesn't get that much food. So if you know your soil temperature is starting to drop, you can direct feed your plants to make sure that they're not going to also drop in nutrients. And direct feed, this is where they're the soluble ones, like the liquid seaweeds and the stuff that you can get in the gallon jugs. They are made, because they're water soluble, the ions and the compounds in there are a little more absorbable to the plants than just the straight dry fertilizers. But yeah, I feed directly to solve problems. Cold weather, some kind of deficiency. How? Broadcast, okay? Scatter. In our fertilizing schedule that we built, that pre-plant fertilizer, that gets just sprinkled everywhere. Banded banding, that's good for transplants, okay? You put a row of transplants in, about 5 inches away from there, you just put a little furrow, 1 to 2 inches deep, and you put your fertilizer in there, cover it up in water. The reason is because you don't want that fertilizer touching the roots. And you want to give it, if you put it just on top, but you then have to wait for it to soak down. So you want to kind of put it at root level, but not on the roots. That helps out. And starter solutions, that's the other thing. One of the things I do when I plant tomatoes, I dig the hole, I mix up a 6-12-6 fertilizing solution, and I saturate the hole with that. It gives it a little boost, helps to negate transplant shock a little bit. And if you notice, I said 6-12-6, so it's high in phosphorus, which helps build roots. Side dress. This is how our other weekly one goes on. And like it is, I got my row of plants about 5 to 6 inches out. I just put a line of fertilizer down, rake it in lightly, and water. That's a side dress. Foliar feeding, that goes along with direct planting. Foliar feeding is wetting the foliage, spraying it down with a water-soluble fertilizer. Again, I use that to solve problems. That's a problem solve. It's fast. Right? If something manifests and it's a problem and I got to correct it, and I got to correct it fast, I'll do foliar and I'll just spray. You just spray it on the plant, like liquid seaweed or stuff like that. It can be a supplement for soil fertilizer. I would stick with, especially starting, stick with fertilizing your dirt, unless you have a problem and someone says, oh, hey, squirt some seaweed on it or whatever. Yeah, that's what we talked about, feeding the hole. It's best if you're going to plant and you're going to feed the whole liquid, because even though these are all natural, even if you make your own fertilizer, they're really potent in their powder form, and they will hurt the roots. So if you're going to fertilize in your hole before you put the transplant in, some kind of liquid seaweed, Hash-to-Grow, something like that. And again, all of that gobbledygook was general, because every plant has its own fertilizing schedule. For tomatoes, like tomatoes, you get them in the ground and you do a constant fertilizer, and then like when you start actually wanting them and they start flowering and starting to make tomatoes, they need a little more, okay? That's kind of most of the fruiting vegetables. When you start seeing squashes come out, you might want to give them a little more. But like I said, if you want the blue ribbon, you got to get into your vegetable and figure out exactly what it wants and do it exactly that way. I think this is the last one in this section. So a fall spring. Spring fertilizers are usually heavier than fall fertilizers because you just went through the summer, you just leached out all your fertilizer, all your stuff, so you're gonna need a little heavier in the spring. When you go to your fall garden, you've been fertilizing all the way through, and you're gonna re-amend your soil before you put your fall garden in, and then grow your fall garden. So not much. I mean, you can see it's not much. You're using an 18-6-12 versus 19-5. I mean, it's not that much. You just need to be cognizant of it. When you start your spring garden, you may need a little more oomph in your soil because of all the deterioration during the winter, unless you grow cover crops. Harvesting. Okay.
Pluck them and eat them.
What's that?
Pluck them and eat them.
Yeah, pluck it and eat it, right? Stem harvest style kale, double harvest. This is actually kind of good, especially like stuff like herbs and basil, right? Basil. One, you want to always keep basil so it doesn't flower, because once it flowers, it changes the stuff. But like, I grow my basil so it is just about to flower when the tomatoes are done, because we do tomato sauce. So, but I don't want to take the whole basil plant, so you cut it like halfway down above a root, above a flower node. It's double harvest, right? And then I'll take that half of the plant and make my basil, and then for the rest of the growing period, that'll regrow. And in fact, some of the things, like lavender, if you don't do that, with lavender, have you ever seen someone's lavender hedge and like the first 1.5 feet of it's all twigs because they didn't prune it properly? Stuff like lavender and rosemary, if you don't prune it, it'll get leggy on the bottom. And root vegetables, you just got to kind of know when a beet's about the size of a golf ball, and you can see the top of it, and you got to pull it. And cut and come again, this is your salad greens. This is what a lot of people do. Oh, what do you want for dinner? And we go out to the garden and we grab a bunch of stuff and cook. Fruiting vegetables, and the fruiting vegetables are a lot like your flowers, right? If you pick them regularly, you're going to get more fruit. Like if you correctly deadhead your flowers, you get more blossoms. Same with the fruiting vegetables. I keep my beans picked, they're going to flower again, and I'm going to get more beans. Heading vegetable, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. Some people say they pick Brussels sprouts individually. I hack it off. But with like broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage, you'll get side shoots, right? You take the first head of broccoli, and then if you let it in and you keep feeding it, you get shoots off of that broccoli. They're called baby broccoli or broccoli rabe. You can get the same thing with cauliflower and cabbage. You'll actually get heads that are just smaller. Like you have a big head, and then maybe you'll get 2 little heads, and then maybe you'll get a couple little heads, and then maybe on the last harvest, you'll get like 3 or 4 like baseball-sized heads, right? And then there are some things where you just gotta know. Potatoes in the ground, check them 120 days. I always have a test plant, especially for potatoes. I'll go out to the potatoes. It's been 120 days. I will go find the weakest, junkiest looking potato plant, and that's the one I'll harvest up and see how it looks, because then the ones that actually look nice on the top will probably be better. And there's books you should probably read. Yeah, just in case. Okay. Okay, we're gonna take a break because I think I've filled the dam to overflowing. I promised we show you a pretty easy method. 1, to get a box in the ground, and 2, when Dr. Smith comes in with your pest and integrated pest management, this kind of ties in with that. All right, so what we got? These are 2 by 12 by 10, because I can only do 10-foot rows because of ground level. Because of how lumber is, they're really actually only like 11 inches wide, because no one makes a foot anymore. The thing with the wood, it's got to be pressure treated of some type, or redwood or cedar. My 4x4 boxes are cedar, so I don't have to do anything. If it's just regular wood, it needs to be pressure treated. Congratulations, just triple the price of the board. But pretty straightforward, and I am going to, I need the 3.5 ones. Now, I've done this 42 times already and haven't hurt myself. All right, pretty straightforward. If you can't see, you're gonna need to stand up. Please feel free or gather around, school circle. All right, now, I'm actually just gonna put these together real fast, because this isn't the important part. And quite honestly, if these weren't really heavy, I would have done this already. Oh yeah, by the way, pressure treated wood doesn't like starting screws. Depending, I put 3, sometimes I put 4 or 5. Depending how straight I get. Right now, for time, I'm just going to do 2. But yeah, you at least want 3. Here's the thing, I have a 5-year plan, and so hopefully by the time these rot out, I will have saved up and be able to replace them with brick, because I really want brick. My wife really wants brick because it's pretty. But for right now, this gets me in the ground.
What are those, 2 feet wide?
Yeah, these 1 foot.
No.
Oh, these 20 inches.
So why 20 inches?
Because most people, in fact, let me get this in. Most people will say 18 inches, which is really all you need, 18 inches. Mine is 20 inches because it makes my surface area 16 square feet, which is like every other bed that I have. So now all my watering and fertilizer for these is the same. Helper? Need a helper. Helper?
Jump up there and help him, Mac.
All right, we're just gonna set this on. I found this is the easiest way. Really all I gotta do is just make sure I don't knock it off.
What is pressure treatment?
It's a mechanical treatment they give the wood so that it doesn't rot as fast when it's in contact with dirt. Like any building construction that's in contact with dirt, by code, it needs to be pressure treated. It helps it last longer when it's touching dirt. And especially, you got to consider you're going to be watering these regularly, so it's not only touching dirt, it's touching wet dirt for the most part.
Doesn't have any bad chemicals in it?
The grain board, a little bit. Yeah. Oh, I burn it all the time. It smells good. You're not supposed to burn. Not supposed to burn plywood either. You know what? Plywood burns great. But yeah, there are chemicals, and you aren't supposed to burn it. If you're super concerned about that, you can line it with plastic in between, not the bottom. And I'm going to get into the bottom of these here in a minute, because that's all right.
If you're really worried about the chemicals, you won't put plastic down either.
Yeah, half, 12 of one, half a dozen of the other. Okay, have a box, right? So, and it's going to go down. Here is 2 schools of thought. One school of thought is I should put weed paper on the bottom of that box, and a lot of people do that to keep things from growing up. I don't. I make sure I get as much weeds and stuff out of here as possible, especially like grasses, right? Or clumps. If there's a seed down here, that seed does not have enough energy in its cotyledons to grow a foot. So that's pretty good. I also burn it. There's one of those little propane roofing torches. If I'm really in a hurry, I'll just scorch it underneath, burn all the weeds off. But I don't, and then I just fill it. So here's your box. Now, if we lived in a place without bugs, and we lived in a place without frost, and we lived in a place without heat, and we lived in a place without wind, and
That's California.
yeah. You can drive the entire state of California, 1,200, 1,300 miles, top to bottom, and not get a single bug on your windshield. Yeah. We need to be able to put pest management on here. You're going to get a whole big course on pest management. You're going to see the triangle. There's like mechanical, cultural, chemical, organic and stuff. We're going to start with mechanical because that's the least intrusive. So what you do, that's a 1/2-inch PVC pipe. I'm going to show you how to bend them. And then you just get something that it fits into. Take this, and now I need the other size. I need this. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna put 5 on here because I found that that is strong enough against Texas hurricane April winds. All right, so it's 10 feet long. We need to do 30, 60, 90. Okay, so take this, that can be trash. I might want to hold on to that. All I did here, I just cut a piece of pipe. I pre-drilled it at 1 inch and then at 6 inches so that just so these go in pretty easily. I want this to line up with the top. I'm going to start my screw.
Are your safety glasses?
I'm not cutting, chipping, or grinding. Safety glasses are not required. I was a NAVOSH officer. That was a horrible job because I was the one that had to walk. Where are your safety glasses?
You must have way back before you became a kept man.
Yes. Life is so much better.
Did you have a degree in chemistry?
No. Mechanical engineering and computer science. So these you're going to put on. You don't need to get those really tight. You just snug up if you tighten them. All right, who's mechanically inclined?
I am.
Okay, you want to put the rest of them on? And I'll show you everyone how to bend tubes. So I'll let you get going. There's the lines, even with the top. Yeah. Okay, so we got to look at what we're going to do. There we go. This is actually just to let him cool, but can you kind of see in your head what we're doing? Yeah. How do we make these? I don't know if any people need them. I don't think I can do it over there. There's not enough room. People just like.
Need to help prepare it over?
No, we're gonna have to do it here because guys, we just want to migrate over for real fast.
Migrate over here, please.
We got 15 minutes. Okay. Wrong marker. All right, the key to this, and like I said, PVC is amazing. I love it. You need to mark these. Thank you, sir. At 5 feet.
60 inches.
There we are. Okay. Like I said, this is just 1/2 inch PVC pipe. All right. Make the little jig. Heat gun. It's got to be electrician's heat gun. I tried it with a hairdryer. It doesn't work. And we just go from here. Once you get it hot enough.
So don't use your hair dryer at the house, right?
No, it doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to touch. Yeah. Good thing I didn't think. Yeah. I have a habit of destroying household things using, yeah. And once it's, what's that? On this jig, it is a little complex, but there's a drawing of it in your packet. And eventually, when you get hot, once you get hot enough, it will go. My nails got bent.
You're fine.
There we go. Thank you. It'll slide a little, there we go.
How many of y'all bought PVC lately? It's really gone up in price in the last 3 years. And by him doing this, he's saving a few dollars in all the joints. Elbows, Ys, connectors, etc.
Yeah, because you would need at least two, yeah, to do this 245s and 290s, they're probably a couple bucks a pop now.
Pop now.
All right,
Okay?
there we go.
I'll get out of here.
Where's- I usually let that cool on the frame, but we are in a time crunch. So what I do is I just put this on, and that's really uneven, but it's all right. I'll just put this on and then pop it off. Let it cool. Oh, that was, yeah, good enough for government work. All right, who wants to make one? I need 3 more. Anybody? Anybody want to make one?
Yeah, I'll make one.
Yep. All right, so we're gonna go, and where's my pen? Yeah.
All that you said is in our notes or?
Yeah, the jig and how to do this is in a hand. If it's not a printed out handout, it's
You're set to go.
it is on your thumb drive, including how to make the dimensions for this. Okay, Tim, do you want to?
That's 50. I mean 60 inches.
Tim, do you want to supervise this side?
Yep.
Okay.
You can go, you're going over there?
Yeah, I'm gonna finish that up.
All right.
All right.
So that's a 10 feet.
Yeah, it's a 10 foot, works pretty well.
Push a little bit around to there. Yes. All right here.
You want to flip it over to the other side?
Does it go on the?
Yeah, it goes all the way on the end.
Yeah. All right.
You can eyeball the end.
This is just for an example. How wide are your boxes?
This is my box.
This is it.
Yeah, here, I'll show.
So y'all seen him do this, and she's doing it now. And then you can watch, you don't want to actually work that frame over there if you like. Whatever you would like.
Here, I'll go over that with you. Ready?
How far?
30
You know, with a hacksaw.
Excuse me, man.
Cutting it, if you've got a cutter, it's whatever. There you go, and that would go in there, just like that.
There we go. And then here, let me mark it out for you real fast.
What kind of baby ass thing is that?
Yeah, 30.
30, right?
Yeah, 30. It was the first one that did 10 feet that my hand touched. 60.
And I've actually done mine.
90. And this over here.
Schedule 20, right?
The PVC, whatever they had. I think this is.
That looks like 40.
Yeah, this is 40.
The thin wall, right?
Yeah, you actually don't want you could do 40 or 80. The thin wall's too thin.
The 20 is too thin.
Yeah, it'll do this process. The sun, after one summer, will dry it, and they'll crack apart. Yeah, see, this bed right there is that right
How
there.
many rows do you get in this?
It depends on what I'm putting in there.
Okay.
So like this is peas and beets, I have my peas up against here and beets in here. Generally, this is just for one row. Yeah, so down here, one row, tomato, this isn't the goods. Yeah, so right here I get a row of peppers, but when we go to production planning, you do intensive planning. Like I have one row of peppers, but it's like they're staggered. I can get tomatoes, 12, almost a dozen tomato plants in one. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and I mean, this
I just love how organized you are and how
Oh, yeah.
methodical you, I mean, you
It's
really thought it
it's a
all
lot of, yeah. And once it's done, it'll actually be fun.
Tape measure?
I put it over there. Oh, here it is.
All right,
Yeah, I just stuck it down and told no one where it was.
This one's in a different place.
No, we got one on the end.
Did I miss?
Let's put it on.
Just like that, you line it up right there.
Can I see the tape measure? Oh,
There you go.
What happened here? The other side is, right?
yeah, I went 6. Yeah, that's my fault. I went 6 feet instead of 60.
Well, it goes right on the end, though.
Yeah. Oh no, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can go all the way to the end. It's fine.
We're gonna have to,
Yeah, there's the new mark for that one.
this is coming off.
There's a mark right there.
Yeah. Somehow I got a foot off,
It's okay. We're good.
so we need to go 30 inches.
So, I mean, these can work way longer hours. Gluing in place, just bending it, shaping it.
Shaping down.
Awesome. Here, you want to help me flip it down?
You know, so it is, and I keep it high. No, it's no, but these are all the things.
Yeah, I'll fix it. Yeah, it's good. It's good enough for demonstration.
Oh, so you're putting I thought it might have been a pole, but you're making a regular hand.
It's just it's easier.
Okay, all right.
I tried to do nice
Yeah.
curves and circles and
Easy, but easy is good. Easy
Yeah.
is fast.
If it's only this big,
yeah.
So you just heated it up and basically.
Yeah.
Formed it.
And then, yeah, the jig, for that jig, on your thumb drive, the dimensions for all that nails on that jig are on there. We had a technical problem, but
Maybe actually you should flip it over. Flip it over. You can do it.
well, then no, these sides.
Oh, I
No,
think these sides are flush and those are, yeah.
What's that? Yeah, it's fine. No, we'd have to take those off and flip them. Because you see the 1 inch hole. Yeah, the 1 inch holes. It's
Oh, shoot. Darn. We screwed it up.
it's totally fine.
That came to a point.
I love it. Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So I've also seen just the PVC pipe. Are you going to talk about like the
Well-
difference in why you bend it and versus why it's just not like put into?
Oh, it's very hard to make that curve.
The curve.
I tried to make it all.
The small ones, they bend pretty good. I mean,
Yeah, but then you need to make a form that's got a really nice curve. I tried a couple of different sizes. This is so much easier. Yeah.
we don't need a perfect anyway.
Yeah. This was so much easier.
Man, that is a good idea.
Do you do anything?
How long is the top piece?
The ends,
The top.
The top.
this,
Cross piece, yeah.
I don't know, 8 to 10 inches. 8 to 10 inches.
So you're talking basically almost half the distance.
Yeah. Yeah, in there, I know Bill has, I don't know if he printed it out for the packets, but it's definitely on that thumb drive, the dimensions to make that with all the nails. Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure it out because I got 4-foot bed.
Yeah, I just had to make a bed the other day, and I made it wrong. I made my jig wrong, and it'll still work, but it's not as nice as possible. I just got to explain this real fast, and we're done. Yep. Okay. Okay, guys. Hey, get everyone's attention real fast, and we'll go over what we did here. We had a little mechanical error. That's all right. It happens. These should go in about 4 inches. These are flipped, so the screw's up too high, no problem. But what you got here, and you got a 10 by 20 foot bed, 16 square feet, okay, whatever you guys want to make them. The hoops.
Here you go. Last one.
Sort of.
It's there. It's
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's hot. The hoops. We spent a lot of time talking about crop expenders. You're going to spend a whole class talking about pests. We talked about frost cloth. We talked about shade cloth. We talked about insect cloth. This is what you put it on. So now you have your plants. You could do it one of two ways. I'm trying to do it really nice and like sew panels together. You can just drape cloth over and crimp it on the ends.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If my beds are wider than that, can I buy a wider weight of PVC and just simply
Yeah.
skip that step?
Yeah, there's been a lot of, yes, there's a lot of questions about why we do this A-frame instead of trying to get this bend for this width is hard. You got to build it's pain. About 3 feet, you can get a nice bend because my 4-foot bends are just hoops. Yeah. The wider ones that hoop off really better. It was just really hard to get a consistent bend on here.
Bjorn, your time is up.
Yep. I'm done. So yeah, that's.
Okay, everybody give Bjorn a big hand because it's not over yet, even though the clock says it is, because we have a man who's come all the way from Schertz to see you guys and tell you a little bit about what he does for the Master Gardeners. It's Dale Oddbody, somebody that I have admired